Hello, everybody. Welcome into our latest live broadcast. Today it's the 12th of March, 2025. My name is Carey Holzman, and thank you guys for checking us out today, hanging out with us. Welcome into all our friends and members here in the chat room, interacting with me live today as we do on all of our videos now. YouTube should be an interactive platform as far as I'm concerned. And if you're watching these videos after they air live, well, you're missing out because they're so much more enjoyable when you get to interact with myself and our amazing community. Then if you haven't tried it, we'll just pop in and say hello and let the magic happen. It's a very friendly community, and we always welcome other friendly individuals from all over the world to come join us and interact with myself and each other during the entire live stream. So we get to know each other. It's a lot different than a TV show or a movie where you're just mostly ignored as a spectator instead of actually being a part of the show. So you are welcome to hang out with us here. It is completely free of charge. All those people you see in our chat that are green, these are our supporters, and these are the people who make these videos possible now that sponsorship on YouTube is sort of a past tense thing now. It still exists, but it's not sustainable for a main career. It's fine if you want to make a video after work or something, a little extra gas money, but if we want to do this full time, we need our supporters, and I can't thank all those folks in green enough for helping us to continue producing so much content and continue to do what I enjoy most, which is to give you honest, unbiased reviews without repercussions from a company who doesn't like what we have to say. Some reviewers, most reviewers on YouTube, they get a product, they're told when to produce it, they're told it has to be evaluated by the company before they can show it to their audience. And then, of course, if there's any changes that need to be made, they must be made by a certain deadline. The video has to air on a certain date. And then the content creator is paid pretty well by that sponsor. But is that a review or is that a commercial? So here, as a working computer technician, YouTube is a thing I started back in 2008 here on this channel to try to open up the minds of people that are home users that were interested in maybe choosing this as a career and what it involves, because I was not prepared for the major difference between home users and corporate work. And I enjoy them both, let me just say. Corporate side of things, the business side, could even be small business, that's much more regular work. Whereas with consumer work, you don't really get very many repeat consumers within a short window of time. So you have to figure out how to get a lot of them in order to be able to pay your bills at the end of the month. Or you just focus on small, medium-sized businesses, or you could go to work for a corporation and then you don't even have to worry about vacation and health care and how much money you're going to make this week, because then that's all set for you. On the other hand, if I want to earn more money, I don't have to ask a manager for a raise and then let them determine what I'm worth. I could simply knock on some more doors, get some more clients, work a little more, and if I fail, because I don't have enough clients and I can't pay my bills, that's nobody's fault but my own. And if I succeed and I'm very successful, that's because of the grind and doing the work. I much prefer, for me personally, having that kind of control and having that kind of responsibility. In working for corporate America, nearly every single job I had there, I was laid off because of an acquisition or because of an outsourcing, not because of anything I did. And that got a little frustrating after a while, that you think everything is going well, and then you show up to work the same as you do any other day, and they want to pull you into the office and let you know things are about to change, and you did nothing. You know, you were a good employee, they've got no complaints, but so I hated that uncertainty, and it made me quite paranoid about what's going on today. Is it going to happen this week? Because it happened pretty much everywhere. So by having my own place, I'm able to control that, and then to be able to share my enthusiasm and how much I enjoy my work with an audience that, you know, isn't for everybody, but for those of you that have discovered this channel and have stuck around, I appreciate you guys very much, because you're the ones who get this. You get what I'm doing. And if you're new here, you'll find we're very different from most other tech channels in that I like to keep things very real and very practical. If I don't like a product for my reasons, I'm going to tell you. If I do like a product for my reasons, I tell you as well. But regardless, a company is not paying me for my opinion. So for example, today we're going to review this Huawei P5 mini PC. Huawei reached out and asked if we would review it. No money is exchanging hands, and there is no terms or conditions other than for me to do it in my way. That's what they want. This is a budget PC. Now, we've talked about these entry-level machines before. Every year, these entry-level machines get more and more capable. They're not just enough to get you by. Now they're more like a couple of years ago as mid-range machines in performance and power. But that's where they're starting now as the technology keeps evolving. It's getting faster, it's getting cheaper. So the prices have never been lower for the amount of power you're getting. And this brand is not as well known as others. So how are they going to sell? Put yourself in Huawei's shoes. If your competitors have brand names that the consumers are more familiar with, why should they pick yours? And the basic, simplest answer is you have a better price. That's it. So for that reason, I was very intrigued with the offer from Huawei to review their machine. You'll see it's all shrink wrapped here. I've never opened it. We're going to do that. We're going to do a true unboxing. Instead of showing you the product in its best light, which is what most reviewers do, we're going to go through the what could be ugliness of having to update it and see if we're a version behind in Windows, or if everything is ready to rock and roll out of the box. There's always going to be some updates. Sometimes it's more extreme than others. And we'll check out the noise, we'll check out the performance, and we'll do it all live the same way you would if you ordered it and it just arrived in the mail and now you're getting ready to unpackage it, right? Are you gonna somehow have an edited version of your unboxing and setup and configuration? No, but very few YouTube videos show you the reality of how much time that takes and what to expect. They might lay parts out on a desk and say, here's everything in the box. Okay, but how is that in the box? Are there little secret compartments you need to be aware of? Where was that little piece hidden? I didn't even know it was in there. So by doing the unboxing live, you have a very accurate idea of exactly what you should expect if you decide you want to try one of these out yourself, you want to buy one. We've got 2 links for the mini PC from the official link from the manufacturer and an Amazon link. And the reason I provide the Amazon link is if you want that peace of mind, that if you say, okay, after the review, I think this seems really ideal for me, but I'm not sure. If you get it from Amazon, you have 30-day free returns. So you have that peace of mind that if for any reason, just changed your mind, any reason at all, you can send it back for a full refund. So all I'm trying to do here is give you some ideas of what's available in the market, where we're at today in March of 2025 with regards to power for performance. And this is where we start on the entry level. Now we're going to get to that in a minute, but a few other items I want to talk about. Our friend Buster, you couldn't ask for a nicer person, right? If you're one of Buster's friends, you should consider yourself blessed. I was a little saddened that, I guess in Scotland they still have milk delivery to the front door. And someone walked right up to his front door and stole his milk. Like, Buster's one of these guys that I have no doubt if that person would have knocked on the door and said, hey, do you have any, I'm starving, I desperately need something, do you have anything? He probably would have given him 5 gallons of milk. He might have taken him to the store and helped him out. For somebody to just steal that from the nicest, most generous person was so unnecessary and uncalled for. It shocks me that, when I hear about these stories here in the big cities in the United States, I'm not surprised. There's a lot of people. Scotland, not so crowded. But desperate people amount to desperate measures. And well, when he told me that, I couldn't believe it. I mean, it's a petty theft. It's just the idea. What did he do to deserve that, And furthermore, the person who did it really could have gotten so much more if they would have made an attempt to ask. So that just saddens me. You couldn't ask for that to happen to a nicer person who is absolutely the least deserving of having to do that. But again, very minor, but nonetheless uncalled for. And here in Phoenix, we're the 5th largest city in the United States. Anytime you get into a giant city where you just got a lot of people crammed into a small space, there's a lot of theft. There's a lot of desperation, right? You've got a little bit of everything where you've got people that are working and making a good career and people who aren't working for one reason or another, and they decide they're going to take something from somebody who is. You don't generally have these problems living out in the country. Now, I've never been to Scotland and I've never seen where Buster lives, but it does feel a lot less crowded and a lot less what's the word I want? Condensed, like everybody's in one little place. But there you go. You just can't get away from it. It's all over the world, and humans are humans, I guess. And some people don't realize that they're creating their own misery. So if this person who did this would have taken a different approach, they might not have to do that anymore. But now that they've done it, it just leads them down a path that eventually is going to get them busted. So very sorry to hear that. But well, somebody is stealing from our good friend Buster. Buster was very kind to send Mara a couple of gifts for her birthday through Amazon, and he didn't want to leave me out. And boy, he knows exactly what to send, I'll tell you. It boggles my mind how his thoughtful gifts are just right there, you know, right exactly with the person's personality. So with regards to the things he sent me, for example, which wasn't my birthday, a couple of Star Wars pens, which of course I'm a big Star Wars fan, and something really special here, which is this piece of film from the movie Empire Strikes Back that's framed and has a certificate of authentication. And I've never bought one of these before, so again, I don't know how Peter wouldn't know if I had one of these already, being the big fan that I am, but somehow he knew. And not only that, the frame I got is a really cool frame because if I hold it up to the camera here, you'll see I got Yoda. You'll see that's the actual frame of film there. And like I said, it's got authentication on it and everything, certification. If it'll focus. So, I mean, I don't even know what to say. What a nice guy. I mean, nice is one way to put it. And we'll definitely have to put this on display here in the studio for sure. And I think the pens, I gotta use these pens. I'm not gonna collect them. I'm gonna open these up and put them in the drawer, and the next time I'm looking for a pen, I'll just grab my Star Wars pen. Sounds good to me. Thank you so much, Buster. What a guy. What a guy. And then I decided there's a movie coming out Friday called The Electric State, which is based on a book that was reviewed very well, came out a few years ago, I think. And it's a very unusual book in that it's sort of a graphic novel in the sense that it's, I think, my understanding, I don't know this very well, but the author is an artist. And so I guess he's drawing these pictures and then writing a story to go along with it. And then overall, page after page, it tells this big story. And it looks like a light read. And after I saw the critic reviews of this movie, The Electric State, coming out Friday, it's one of the most expensive movies ever made, about $320 million to make this film. I believe it's on Netflix on Friday. It's got Chris Pratt and Millie Bobby Brown in it. And Woody Harrelson does this voice of a robot that looks like Mr. Peanut. Critics are like, this is not good. You know, the visuals are amazing. The story falls short, and it doesn't follow the same story as the book. Well, having never read the book, I thought, let me get the book now so I can compare them. So that came in today. And to just show you, if you're interested, if you like this kind of a book, it's got these, basically a page of a dystopian future picture, and then the story is on this side. You turn the page. So this should be an easy read. I think I can get this all read between now and Friday when the movie comes out. And the story is supposed to be really good. According to the Amazon reviews, people really like the story. They really like the artwork. And it's supposed to be a dystopian 1994. Like someone's going back to see how everything went wrong. it back in 1994. So a different 1994 than we all know, but what could have been. And it's supposed to be a little eerie, a little creepy, and a really good story. So I'm looking forward to reading this. Definitely, I know they sell this on Kindle, but I couldn't imagine reading a book like this on a Kindle. This is the kind of book that you need a properly good sized page, be able to look at the details and the photos. And then if you ask me about it, I'll tell you what I think. So I'll be reading that later on. So with all of that out of the way, and again, a shout out and a thank you to our friend Buster for his continued support and generosity. And again, to all of our members. Speaking of which, let me say hello. We've got a few Super Chat contributions in here that I have not shouted out. Our friend Buster renewed his membership. He's now a member for 34 months. That's amazing. Thank you so much, Buster. And he also contributes 10 pounds. So if that doesn't tell you a man's character, you know, stealing a quart of milk from a guy, holy cow. Guy could have got so much more if he was friendly. I just know Buster, and he wouldn't have let the guy, you know, if he was hurting that bad. It just kills me. Just kills me. People do that to themselves. Hello to David Graham. Hello to Mark Gaines. Of course, Mara's in our chat room, along with Steve Chappelle and Gil Garcia saying hello. And Buster said he's just popping in to say hello, and he'll be watching the stream later. Again, thanks for hanging out with us, Buster. Thank you again for all of your support, your generosity, and more importantly, your friendship. Eddie Casanova says hello, as does John Williams and Dustin Fuller. Nick Poverman says this should be interesting. Will it have an issue with Secure Boot if you try to reinstall Windows 11, or will it be legit? I don't know why it wouldn't be legit. It's pretty rare that we would ever get a machine that isn't. Initially, we were getting some older inventory from some companies that were clearly trying to pull a stunt to get older processors sold by throwing Windows 11 on and bypassing security requirements. You don't see many of those computers available anymore because they were snatched up because they were so cheap. And then they took a lot of negative reviews as a result of people discovering, and maybe some people still haven't discovered, that the Windows 11 was bypassed. This is a Ryzen 3 processor on here, and this should be the 3600U. If you check the Windows 11 compatible CPU list, the 3600U from Ryzen should be on the compatible list. What isn't going to be compatible is if the number started with the number 1. So any Ryzen chip that starts with the number 1, you definitely want to get a number 2 or higher. This is a number 3. Remember, the lower the number is, the cheaper the machine's going to be. So in this case, we have a Ryzen 3. This is the 3600U. I'm not sure which generation this is, but because I don't keep it straight with the Zen Plus, Zen 2. But I'm sure we can Google that and find all that out. I don't expect to see any more of that. That was sort of a phase out of older equipment, and while there still might be a few here and there for sale from shoddy sellers on Amazon, I don't expect it from a brand like Huawei. We've looked at other Huawei products in the past. I don't believe we've ever had any issue with them. We had an issue with most recently with a Max Tang branded mini PC, but that was a prototype, and they were giving us an early look at it. So we've got to be able to give them a pass in the sense that the reason why they sent it was for us to point out issues, potential issues, before they released it to the public. And the fact that we found issues, again, it's a very different situation when it's a prototype model versus something that's being sold to the public. This is for sale right now. You can buy this. And what I have here came from Amazon, no differently than if you ordered it yourself. So I expect the same unboxing experience that I'm going to have that you will have if you decide to get one. But we'll look into that, Nick. We'll absolutely look into that. Hello to Craig Wilson and also Alan with a Y. There's Jonathan Ron Makura, Phil Stodd saying hello. Doman 2000 joins us along with Ray Cutt. Nick says he really needs this community today. His aunt went on hospice today, and it's been a rough few days. I'm so sorry to hear that, Nick. And, you know, we're here for you, man. And maybe I can just distract you, get your mind off of things for a little bit. It's about the best I can offer. Sometimes, at least for me, the way that I will cope with some things that are difficult to handle is to just try and get my mind onto something else. Davis Parsons with a $10 super chat says hello to everyone. It's a great day today. Thank you, Davis. Ben Laird joins us from Scotland and says hello. Frank Jimmy says hello. And there's Douglas Burchell, Chris Dunn, Marsman50. Our friend Planet Cryos renews his membership, also a member for 34 months. He says hello to my second family and friends. Hello, Planet Cryos. Welcome in. Thank you so much for your $2 super chat that just came in. He goes, here's a second hi. Right on. Again, thank you so much. And be sure and check out Planet Cryos' YouTube channel. If you've not seen his YouTube channel, I think you'll enjoy his content. And he produces content fairly regularly. So we'll put a link in the video notes so you guys can check him out. Thomas Mac T joins us and says hello. Gary Bickle says hello. Patrick Manny joins us along with Andy Kane and Rick Lakes. Welcome in. Patrick T and Tim Francis say hello along with Hal Grubbs, Angel, and Gilberto. I can say this name, Gilberto Gonzalez. Welcome in, Gilberto. I went to school with a kid named Gilbert. We called him Gibby. They call you Gibby? Planet Cryos with another super chat, $5. He says, I have a story to tell. Once there was a beginning, middle, and end. Ta-da! If only all stories were that way. Oh, wait a minute. Patrick Manny renews his membership, also a member now for 34 months. That's incredible. 34 is about the most you could possibly have. And given that we're seeing those today, it must be the 34th month that we've offered membership. So these folks have been with us right since day one. And boy, I'll tell you what, that kind of support is, well, it's difficult to explain how special what that means to me. But it does mean a lot to me. And thank you guys so much. Douglas Burchell said he got someone on his Ring doorbell this morning that stole my package. Came right after the Amazon delivery driver. Yikes. David Graham said maybe they saw the milk was expired and saved him. Well, one thing, it looked like it was pretty cold there in Scotland, so I imagine that milk was probably nice and cold. Wouldn't be that way here in Phoenix, even in the wintertime. It probably would be, you know, like refrigerators, I think, usually keep things at about 39, 40 degrees Fahrenheit. And when it's 70 degrees outside, yeah, I don't think milk's going to do very well. Just the idea that they can still have milk delivered to their door in Scotland. That's never been a thing in my lifetime. In my parents' days, when they were kids, there'd be a milkman. So I just assumed that was a thing of the past. It never occurred to me that there were other countries that still might be offering that service. But yeah, I had to read it twice, like, stole your milk. Why is your milk outside? It was delivered. You have a milkman? Yeah, we have a milkman. Really? I've only seen that in TV and movies. That's real? Well, I know it was real back in the day, but that's sort of like having ice delivered, because people used to not have refrigerators. They'd have an ice box. And a guy would come by in a horse-pulled wagon, and he'd have these big old clamps, and he'd get you a big old block of ice, and deliver it to you. And then you'd put that ice in an ice box, and you could refrigerate things, keep things cold and fresh. Prior to that, I guess you just put a lot of salt on stuff, because there was a lot of spoiled food that was eaten, a lot of spoiled meats, and you just salt the heck out of it. Or, you know, the spice trade was really big, obviously, because you gotta make it taste better. And before refrigeration, one way to do that would, salt was pretty common, to get spices from afar to add these exotic flavors and certainly make your food more digestible. That was, of course, we all heard of the spice trades, and that was primarily why they were so big at that time, a severe lack of refrigeration. Got to make that food edible. David Graham with a $2 super chat says he saw Wicked yesterday. Yeah, I'm not a musical kind of person. I've seen a couple of Broadway plays in my life, and I don't really care for any of them. 12 Angry Men, which is not a musical, but a Broadway play. Anytime people sing regularly throughout a film, if it's the Willy Wonka movie that came out with Timothée Chalamet, or Wicked, or boy, there were a few others where I was looking forward to the movie and then all of a sudden realized I'm in a musical. I'm watching a musical. I don't want to watch it. It just doesn't do it for me. I know that Broadway in New York is very crowded and tickets sell out. Things like Hamilton and Start Without Me. I'm from Detroit. Broadway and Broadway shows weren't really a big thing there. So I lack that culture. I openly admit it. And I guess they're making a second Wicked movie, that movie was 3 hours long, and that's only half of it. Wow. But hey, I hope you enjoyed it. It obviously was very well done. Just not my cup of tea. Barry Klein also renews membership for 34 months. He's been a member. Thank you, Barry. Colin Hunt contributes £5. Thank you, Colin. Bradley Morris, another member for 34 months. Right on. Thank you so much, Bradley. David Graham contributes $5. He says, my sister has a 12-inch scar on her leg from a milk bottle we had delivered back in 1970. Well, I would have been 2 years old. So at least where we lived, as far as I know, not that I have memories going back to 2 years old, I don't recall ever having milk delivered to a door ever in my life. But interesting that some places were still doing it in 1970. Of course, those were glass bottles back then. Mark Gaines with a £10 super chat says, Carey, have you seen the new Trikes All-in-One SE? I hope you received my Amazon gift card. Trikes SE, I can't say that I have. Let's take a quick look. And then I can check for your Amazon gift card as well. TRYX All-in-One XE. I see an S. Is it an SE? Is that because it's rotatable? What's the? Give me the cliff notes on that one since we're live here. Is that like a discounted version, or is it a fancier version that's even more money? We have a Trikes cooler to install. We just haven't installed it yet, but we will in a future build. It's just sitting in a box waiting for me to get to it. So thank you for the heads up on that. And let me go back to chat room here. Stevie Zundert says hello. Welcome in, Stevie. As well as Paul Howe joining us and says hello. Hello to Paul. Chris Dunn said his dad was a milkman and took him with him sometimes on his route. Yeah, closest experience I have is I was a paper boy, and I did it by myself. I was on my own, 10 years old, loading up newspapers, delivering them every day, and then collecting once a week for the weekly bill for my subscribers. Were they called subscribers? We had a name for it. Just occurs to me, maybe this whole subscriber thing from YouTube is just my way of still being a paper boy. Except people reach out with contributions. I don't go knocking on doors going, you owe me for 2 weeks. Wouldn't that be something? All right. Oh, and check my phone. Check my phone. Contribution from Mark Gaines. It's a $50 Amazon gift card. I need to get my glasses. Thank you so much, Mark, for your continued support. And have you got all the parts for your build yet? Oh, I already took this out. All right, we are just about a half an hour into today's live stream, and that's sort of the monologue, the warm-up. Let's get to the unboxing. The Wowie P5. And I suppose before I open this up, let's take a quick look at how, excuse me, at how they promote this. We're going to go to Wowie's website, and let me turn on my screen capture, and we'll look at this together. Okay, this is an entry-level budget machine. First and foremost, we're looking at a Ryzen 3500U with 8 gigs of DDR4 RAM, a 256 gig NVMe solid-state storage drive. It's got dual HDMI outputs. It's got gigabit built-in networking, Wi-Fi 5. It's not 6 or 6E or 7, and Bluetooth 5, and not 5.4. So the technology is a little bit older. But look at the price on it, $139.99. That is the price of Windows, essentially. So you're getting Windows at full price and the rest of the computer for free. And the rest of the computer means the case, the power supply, the CPU, the RAM, the storage, the cooler, the Wi-Fi, the USB ports. All of that is included in that price. Now, obviously, it's not going to be bleeding edge technology, but most people, most computer owners don't need bleeding edge technology. And if you are looking for bleeding edge technology, I hope you have a bleeding edge wallet to pay for it. So the Ryzen 5 3500U is a 4-core, 8-thread processor. Now, this is a far cry from the budget CPUs of yesteryear with the Atom processors and the old Celeron J-based processors. We're talking a 3.7 gigahertz max burst frequency, 1200 megahertz built-in GPU, and the RAM is rated at 2400 megahertz. Well, it does have the 2 HDMI outs. It also has a Type-C connector that can work as a DisplayPort or HDMI out, all supporting up to 4K at 60 hertz simultaneously. Apparently here in this photo, they have the wireless version where there's no cables going to anything, because that doesn't make for a good marketing photo. It's sort of like when you look at a picture of a clock or a watch. Have you noticed the time is always 10 after 10 or 2:50 p.m.? It's always the same time, because that is the most appealing place for the hands of the watch or the clock to be during a photo. And well, not every photo, it's not a rule, they don't have to do that. It is very commonly 10 after 10 in most pictures of clocks and watches that are listed for sale. In much the same way, you'll see a lot of mini PCs and keyboards and mice and monitors and televisions where they have no wires. You're like, wait a minute, that's not exactly the most accurate photo, but okay, you get the idea. There's a little bit about the RAM and storage. Everything's going to be bare minimums on this because the price is bare minimum. Obviously, they could add more RAM and they could add more storage, but they'd have to add more price. And what we're looking at here is giving people the best bang for the buck. The minute you start upgrading RAM and storage, the more you start spending and your value starts to go away at a certain point. And before you know it, you're paying $800 for a PC. So they do make a number of different models with different configurations, from Ryzen 7s, and there's an A9. There's an Intel N4020. That's pretty old. 75 bucks. Like if you just wanted something basic, 75 bucks. We just have to check and see if that's a Windows 11 compliant processor. I'm not sure if it is without Googling it. This is going to be very slow computer, this one here, because its storage is eMMC. That is a very inexpensive and slow storage. I personally, if I see a machine or anything has eMMC storage, I stay away from it, because that'll be painfully slow. In the world that I'm accustomed to living in, I wouldn't have the patience for eMMC. Other than that, if it had an NVMe drive or even a SATA drive, I'd be fine with it. But this is going to be the bottleneck to the whole system. But it's also $75. So what do you want for $75? You know what I'm saying? You do get what you pay for. And in some cases, there's a really good value on the low end of stuff. And a lot of these are being sold promoting Linux and Ubuntu. So for people that were home lab users and they want to experiment and you don't want to spend a lot of money on a machine, and maybe you don't want to get a used machine somewhere, you get a brand new under warranty machine for under $100. I mean, this one's 80 bucks. This one's 75. We're not looking at those today, but just want you to know that just because we're looking at this one doesn't mean that's your only choice. We can only look at one at a time. This is what they sent us. They asked us, rather, if we'd look at it. And I said, you know, there is a big demand from our audience for machines under $150. And I know because I can see my Amazon links every time one is sold using our Amazon link. I can see how many have been sold. I don't know who's buying them. I don't know where they're shipping to. All I know is our links, we make a small commission if you use one of our Amazon links and you make any purchase at all after our link takes you to Amazon, even if it's for a totally unrelated product or products. If it was our link that took you there, you still pay the same amount of money. Everything's the same for you as a buyer, but we get credit for basically taking you to the store, right? It's like a taxi driver, and you say, "Hey, take me to a good restaurant," and take me to this restaurant. You're specific, and the taxi driver says, "You don't want to go there. You want to go over here to this restaurant. It's better." You say, "Okay, yeah, I'll take your word for it. You're the taxi driver. You know the town." What you don't know is the taxi driver's getting paid for dropping customers off at that front door of the restaurant. Well, that's what I'm doing by using my Amazon link. It's going to take you to this product today. But you can search in Amazon for other products, and if you go through with the purchase, I get a very tiny little commission, and they do add up. And you remain anonymous. So I don't even know you did it. You'd have to tell me if you wanted me to acknowledge it. But it's a great way to support the channel to get things you were going to get anyway. And again, you have that peace of mind with Amazon purchases that if you want to return anything, as long as it's an Amazon Prime purchase, you have that 30-day return window, which is very generous. Like if you can't make up your mind in 30 days if you want something, then I think it's worth $140 to keep it. So that's an answer in and of itself from my perspective. Now, look, speaking of Amazon, if we look over at the Amazon page, let's see how this is reviewed and what the price is on Amazon by comparison. So here's the Amazon page. Again, same specs. Remember, they may have different versions of this. So we're looking at the entry level here. You'll see there is a box that says apply $40 coupon. If you check that box, it's going to bring your price down to $149. Remember, if Wowie sells a product through Amazon, they have to pay Amazon a commission. So usually it's cheaper to buy directly from the manufacturer. But if you really want that peace of mind to know that returns guaranteed are not going to be a hassle, it may be worth paying the extra $10 to go through Amazon. I don't know how Wowie handles returns. They might be just as good as Amazon. I really don't know. But depends which is more important to you. Save the $10 extra and get it from Wowie directly. And you can even pay with PayPal if that gives you some peace of mind, or your Visa, MasterCard, or American Express. It's a $10 difference. Same exact computer. Or you go through Amazon, you have an often case free shipping. Here it says free delivery tomorrow, which you probably are not going to get over here. This says they only have 6 items left in inventory. Over here, we don't know how many they've got. However, for me personally, the extra $10 at Amazon is worth it, because if I'm not sure if I'm going to like this or not, I want to be able to return it without a hassle. And I don't need a short window of time like 10 days. I have a full 30 days. That's plenty of time to determine if I'm going to keep it or not. So there is a slight price difference, and that's why. Now, looking at the reviews, there's only 2 reviews, but everybody loves it. This is an Amazon Vine product review. So somebody was sent the product for free, and here somebody was sent the product for free. So I don't know how much you can trust these reviewers. I got the product for free, but it's not, I know who I am, and you should know who I am to know me enough by now that I'm going to tell you how it is. These people, do they do that? I don't know. If they send you a product for free and then you give them 1 star, what are the odds they're going to send you a future product for free? Why would they shoot themselves in the foot? So I don't know how honest these reviews are. There's just not enough data here. And given both people that reviewed are part of the Amazon Vine customer. So Amazon Vine is it's a thing you can join on Amazon if you want to become a product reviewer for Amazon. And companies will send you emails for things you probably don't want to review and maybe things you do in exchange for a review. And those reviews, you know, they'll be stipulated up here that this is kind of a bias, or it potentially can be. Doesn't automatically mean someone's going to like the product, but it's in the reviewer's best interest if they ever want to work with the company again. Most companies, if they're getting negative reviews that they paid money, right? They sent you the product at their expense. I mean, if you were the company, would you keep sending items to somebody who's just putting public negative reviews about your product? Or would you rather send that product to somebody else? And it doesn't necessarily mean that the company is wrong. It could be the reviewer just doesn't get the point of the product. Like, oh, I got this Wowie P5 and, you know, it won't play Cyberpunk. Well, it was never designed to do that. So it's possible somebody would give it a negative review because they don't understand the purpose of what they're reviewing and how that correlates to the price. So all I'm trying to do here is set a proper environment or atmosphere with what we're reviewing, why I would think it's good or bad with the price. Sometimes a product I don't like, I will like better if the price is cheaper. Some products are decent, but the prices are high. So if the product is decent, then the price needs to be decent. If that's out of whack, or if the price is underpriced, then that decent product starts looking better and better. The cheaper it gets, all of a sudden, it goes from decent to a great bargain. So all of that plays a factor. And in Amazon reviews, you're not really allowed to talk about price. And that's because the price will change over time. And Amazon reviews stay up indefinitely. So if you say this is X amount of money in 2025, someone doesn't realize they're watching a video from 3 years ago, and they're wondering why the price has shifted. Where did you get it at that price? Well, that was 3 years ago, right? I could tell you about the gallon of gas I bought 3 years ago. And if you want to know where I got it at that price, you have to go back in time. So same thing, and it's just a good idea to not leave comments regarding price, because your comments stay on YouTube indefinitely. So somebody might be reading your comment in 2032 and saying, how did he find that product? It hasn't been made on. Where did you buy it? How did you get it at that price? And that's why you have to keep in mind that when you're leaving comments or you're making reviews, they stay on the internet forever. So think ahead. What's somebody going to think if they watch this video in just a year? How much is the technology going to change? What's the economy going to do? So you can avoid all that confusion by just avoiding talking about the price. But that's why in the beginning of every video, I say the day and the year right out of the gate, because a lot of people don't pay attention to the day and year below the video. So with that, let's go back over to the chat over here. And there you guys are. Okay. The first computer I bought, the first IBM compatible computer I bought, which is what they called it back in the day before Windows, a friend of mine built it out of parts for me because I didn't know how to do it. It was a 28612 that would turbo to 16 hertz. Not megahertz or gigahertz, hertz. And that was $1,200 with a amber 12-inch screen, I guess is what it was. 40 meg mechanical hard drive, a 56K modem. RAM was probably 4 megs, not gigs, 4 megs of RAM. Might not even have been that. It might have been 1 meg of RAM. Can't remember. I do remember I paid $1,200 for it, and I had to put DOS on it. So the idea that you can get all this power with Windows 11 already installed at $140, we come a long way, baby. All right. Here we go. Let's see what it looks like inside. Let me clear some of this out of the way. Let's see, where can I put this? I'll set it down here for now. This is what it looks like out of the box, brand new. And you should experience the exact same. If you don't have this wrapped up, you probably got a used unit, okay? So having the unboxing experience be genuine, real, authentic, unscripted, live, gives you something to compare what you order to, because you should have exactly the same thing packaged exactly the same way for the same price. If you're ordering it, you know, if you're inspired by checking it out yourself, and if anything doesn't match up, that's a big red flag. What's under here? Nothing. We have a little box. We have another little box. So this box contains our power brick right there. I'm not a big fan of this style of power brick, but at this price point, you can't really complain. My issue with these is because they're so wide, they can take up plugs, neighboring plugs on a power strip. And then the limitation of length, these are usually a little bit short for me. I'll demonstrate right now where basically the fix for this is you get an extension cord. But for me to be able to run the power cable from here down to the surge protector to the floor, I much prefer where there's two cables. One that comes from the wall into the adapter, one that comes out of the adapter into the machine. That gives you a bit more length of cable to plug in, especially if you've got to go behind a desk and around something. These cables are often too short. And there's no easy way to extend them other than essentially buying an extension cable. They do sell barrel cable extensions, but they're very easily disconnected. They don't lock in. So I'm not a fan of that solution, but it is a solution you could entertain if that's a problem. And I don't know the length of this one, but generally they're pretty short. Let's see what we've got here. Yeah, I mean, that's not exactly, what is that, about 5 feet maybe? I don't know what my wingspan is, but let's see if it'll reach. I'm going to plug this in. Down here's my surge protector. And, you know, that's the end of my cable. So I can't even get to the end of the desk. So as long as I move this over to the left here, it'll reach. But for that reason, not a fan of that design. However, we've got to keep in mind our price. I've seen those power bricks sell for $40 when they're cheap. So if you took $40 off of the price of this for the power brick, you'd be under $100 for the rest of it. Obviously, that's not a $40 power brick, and it explains how they can keep that price down. In this box, we have what? We have a documentation, and we have a small VESA mounting bracket with screws for mounting the bracket. And what are the other screws for? We have 2 sets of screws here. I don't know yet, but we're about to find out. So let me just clear this out of the way. And that is everything in the box. All these things right here. Get that out of the way. And I'll just keep this up on the desk as a reminder for people joining us what we're reviewing today. So for our first power on, I'm going to need a keyboard, mouse, and HDMI. We're not going to plug it into the internet just yet. So I'll grab my keyboard and mouse over here. And we'll plug this into any USB port. There's 2 USB 3 ports here that are blue. I don't want to waste fast USB ports with a keyboard and mouse dongle. You're not going to type any faster. I also don't want to necessarily put them in the front. This isn't something that often gets unplugged. I like to keep things easily accessible up at the front. So if I need to plug in a flash drive and copy some files, I'm not having to reach around in the back and find anything. Speaking of which, on the back, we have another USB 3 and a USB 2. We have our LAN adapter here, the 2 HDMI ports, and power. That's all there is. It's pretty straightforward. You don't have a lot of USB ports on this, but there are 5 in total, right? 2 USB Type A's on the back, 2 USB Type A's on the front, along with your USB Type C. You've also got a headset jack here. We've got this pull tab on the bottom. I like to see that. That's so when you open up the bottom to do any sort of upgrade, you have some way to lift the bottom away without having to stick a spudging tool in there and try and get it into a seam. So that's a nice addition to have the pull tab. Although a machine like this isn't really designed to be upgraded. I mean, honestly, when I've seen people, for some reason, they can't get over the price. So they buy this for, let's say, $140. And they go, all I have to do is put more RAM and more storage in it, and they spend $600 on RAM and storage. You could have just bought a higher-end mini PC with the RAM and storage you wanted for probably $200 less than what it cost you to do that yourself. Furthermore, these budget machines are limited to how much RAM they can have to begin with. Some of them may even have the RAM soldered on directly. We're going to find all this out later, but the easiest thing you could upgrade would be your NVMe storage. But even I wouldn't do that. I would just as soon plug in a USB dock or flash drive, or even a SATA USB SSD with an adapter right into the USB port and use that as my D drive. That's way more secure, and it also gives you the ability to unplug that and use it somewhere else. If for some reason you lost access to this, you wouldn't lose access to everything on it. You just unplug your USB, move it somewhere else. The price is basically the same, so why would you box yourself in like that? Anyway, let me grab my HDMI cable here, and let's get this fired up for the first time and see what our first boot up looks like and how long it takes and what kind of sound comes out of this. I expect it should be quiet. Once again, with modern CPUs, they're lower voltage, lower wattage, and shouldn't be as aggressive. It's when you get at the high-end bleeding edge level of performance, you also get at the bleeding edge level of power consumption and heat. So this should do really, really well for power consumption, heat, and of course noise. There's our HDMI plug. Let's turn this on. We have a light that just came on here, and let's bring it over to our input or our output here, which is camera 2 is what I call that. And off we go. I hear the fan a little bit as it's ramping up. I also noticed on the side we have a small transflash card reader or micro SD card reader. I missed that earlier. And there's a Kensington lock on the side as well. Not like you got to worry about somebody stealing your $100 computer, but yeah, you might be worried about it. We're going to go through our out-of-box experience here. English, United States, yes. Oh, goody. Turn that off. Now I have to wait for this to cycle through. Here we go. United States, yes. US keyboard. No secondary language keyboard, so we skip that. We're going to say I don't have internet right down here. That's good that that option is there. You have to tell it twice. Continue with limited setup. It then should, after we get our license agreement, ask us to create a user account, a local user account, which I'm going to put the word user in here with a blank password that'll always boot us right up into the desktop. And if you've been watching the channel for a while, as many of you have, you already know what I'm doing here and why. So we'll skip past that and hit accept. I'll say not now on Cortana. Ooh, this does feel a bit of like an older version of Windows, maybe 23H2. But we're going to find out what it ships with. Regardless, we always have to update a new pre-built computer because Microsoft and NVIDIA and these other companies, they come out with drivers every 4 to 6 weeks. AMD Adrenalin driver every 4 to 6 weeks. So from the time it gets manufactured, gets put at the retailer, then you buy it, and then it goes through shipping to your front door. Rest assured, there's been updates that have come out, however long that period is, since it was built at the factory. If this is an older machine, in other words, if we're looking at technology that is a couple of years old, that doesn't mean the machine is a couple of years old, but it's possible. And if that's the case, we can expect our Windows to be out of date by over a year. But for what we're saving on the cost, I think it's worth it to just, do the updates. Who cares? Even the 24H2 update, which can take an hour or longer, I don't mind. In fact, I think it's a great way to test the machine, because a big Windows update can cause a computer that's a little flaky to crash or blue screen. So if you can go through the Windows updates and the big ones, and it happens without any errors, that's a great burn-in test, and that should set the foundation of what to expect moving forward, that everything should be nice and solid. Okay, so there's our desktop, and it's in 4K, which is resolution's a little bit much for me. Let me drop it down to 1080. And let's look at our system properties and see what we've got going on. So right click on the start button, we'll go to System, and we have Windows 10. Is that right? Windows 10? Look at that. I wasn't expecting Windows 10, I was expecting Windows 11, but you know what? I didn't even read the descriptor on the Amazon page. Windows 10 will expire October 14th of this year. So that does explain why the price is so aggressive. But bear in mind, the Windows 11 is a free upgrade, so there's no cost, provided our CPU is on the compatibility list. So we have a Ryzen 3, sorry, it says Ryzen 5. That was a Ryzen 3. No, so 3500. I'm getting those mixed up. So an AMD Ryzen 5 3500U. So if we want to see if that's Windows 11 compatible, we'll just go into the browser. And of course, with Microsoft Edge, the first time we run it, we have to go through all these questions, which is really annoying. And I do need to plug myself into the network, because I did not plug into the network prior, because I didn't want Microsoft to force me into creating an online Microsoft account, a Windows login. So for that reason, when I do the first setup, I always leave it unplugged. I don't connect to any Wi-Fi. Now that we've gotten through the user setup side of things, we're at the desktop. I'll grab my Ethernet cable and just plug it in back here, and then we'll switch back over. Realize you guys can't see that very well. I guess I'll move this over here. All right, now let's switch back over. Right click, full screen for me. Okay. Care about any of this. I want to close all this out. And I'm going to close this. No, I'm going to leave that open because I can't remember. Ryzen 5 3500U. So we're going to type in AMD, let's see, Windows 11 compatible AMD CPU list. That ought to get us there. Lits? Yeah, it'll correct it. All Windows 11 supported AMD processors. Well, this isn't coming from Microsoft, but I assume it's going to be accurate. Let's take a quick look. We're looking for the Ryzen 5. What is this? A 30, I've already forgotten. 3400U? 3500U. Is that what we've got? Ryzen 5 3500U, and yes, that is a supported CPU. So what we'll do, obviously, look, if the manufacturer did this for us, somebody's got to do the work. You think they're going to do that for free? Wouldn't it be best if we just lowered the price of the product and said, here, you can do this yourself? I'm okay with that deal, but I want you to be aware of it, just as I've become aware of it, that explains that lower price. So let's do this. Let's do, we'll go back to our browser. We'll type in download Windows 11. And one of the first links that pops up should be Microsoft, right up here, Microsoft.com. And second one down says download Windows 11. We don't want to download it from anybody but Microsoft. So make sure you're at Microsoft.com. And we want the installation assistant. So we're going to download that. This is a very quick download. It's a small program. And we're going to execute that product or that software. And it's going to tell us if we're ready for Windows 11. And this is going to be 24H2. So we can skip over all the prior versions of Windows 11. And any updates to Windows 10, we can just go right to Windows 11 24H2. Let's okay, so this says we've got to use another app called the PC Health Check app. And based on the results of that app, then the Windows 11 installation assistant knows if it's safe to go forward. This is an even smaller program. You just click, we get that download real quick right up here. Open that up, accept the license agreement, hit install. And in just a second, that will install. It says we're getting things ready for you. Again, it's very small. It's got the box to open the PC Health Check as soon as we hit finish. And we can close all these other windows because they're just distracting. So we're going to check now. This PC meets Windows 11 requirements. So we are good to go for Windows 11 on this, despite the fact it was not pre-installed with Windows 11. It is a free upgrade. So I hit the refresh button now on the Windows 11 installation assistant. It now gets the okay from the PC Health Check. And there's your license agreement. Accept it and install. And that's it. Now, this could take an hour. Could take longer than an hour. Could take less than an hour. I'm just saying an hour as an average. Depends how fast your internet connection is and also how anxious you are to get it done. Because the more anxious you are, the longer it takes. But you see the download is pretty quick. Now, when it comes to things like Secure Boot, all of that would have had to have been enabled in order for us to pass that health check. So presumably, TPM is enabled and the Secure Boot is enabled in the BIOS out of the box. So you'll see we're already in step 2, which is verifying the download, making sure that nothing is corrupted, that the data is 100% intact that we downloaded. And then once it passes that, which it almost always passes that, I don't think I've ever seen it not pass, it now begins the installation process. And this is the part that may take a while. So we're going to let that run. And in the meantime, what I'll do is I'll put camera 1 back on, and I'll keep camera 2 on screen as well. I'll just put myself, I don't know, what do you think, down here? We can keep an eye on both. And while we wait, let me know what questions or concerns you have about this or other mini PCs, and I'll do my best to give you answers. Also, watch our community for answers. They often have answers much faster and oftentimes more accurate than mine. So do not ignore responses in the chat room. Or if you do, you might be missing out on faster, more accurate answers. Because we have an amazingly helpful, supportive, and knowledgeable community here. Luke Greeny has said, heads up, Ace Magic has the S3 Intel 12th Gen Alder Lake N95 mini PC for 170. Still seems a little bit high, 170. Because the N95, when you're looking at the N processors, you're at the Celerons. They just changed it to the letter N. And for me personally, anything under an N100 I'm not interested in. And my preference would be the N150, which is the current N processor, which is really decent, really good processor. A few weeks back, I was telling you about the GMK Tech, which I think was the N150, and that's gone back on sale for essentially the same price as this one. Which processor is more powerful, a Ryzen 5 3500U versus an N150? I don't know. It's got to be pretty close, but I do know there are people that just prefer Intel over AMD or AMD over Intel. They're probably pretty equivalent, but let's type in N150 versus Ryzen 5 3500U. And CPU Monkey comes up and says, essentially, they're both 4 cores. The Intel processor does not have any hyperthreading. The AMD processor does. So with the Intel N150, you have 4 cores with 4 threads. On the AMD Ryzen 5 3500U, you've got 4 cores with 8 threads. So no hyperthreading on the Celeron side of things, but there is on the Ryzen. The base frequency on this is 2.1 gigahertz, where the base frequency on the N150 is 3.6, but this does turbo when needed to 3.7. See what I'm getting at? Like this is such a narrow difference. Those hyperthreads for me would make it more worthwhile without even looking at anything else. Even if the frequencies weren't the same, you'd still likely get higher performance with more threads. However, it depends on what you're using it for. Then you can compare the built-in graphics. Almost always the AMD built-in graphics are almost always better than Intel's built-in graphics. And if they give this an overall score, I'm kind of curious. Maximum amount of RAM this chip will accept is 32 gigs. On the Intel N150, the most it will accept or support is 16 gigs. Something else to keep in mind. This is a higher wattage processor at 15 watts. The Intel N150 is a 10 watt. The thermal junction on both chips is 105 degrees Celsius. That's when it's running too hot. This is a 12 nanometer process on the chip, and the Intel N150 is a 7 nanometer. This uses the chiplet design. Intel's on the N150, it's still a monolith single chip design. By comparison, this chip was introduced in the first quarter of 2019. The Intel N150 was just released a couple months ago, the last part of 2024. But just because it just came out doesn't mean it's better. It's catching up. So when we look at the comparison, the Ryzen 5 on Cinebench R23 on the single core had a total score of 876, and the Intel 150 on the single core Cinebench, instead of 876, it did 872. Like, that's so narrow. It'd be very difficult to, because you could probably run that test 2 or 3 times and you're never going to see the same answer twice, but they're going to be neck and neck every time. When you do the multi-core test on Cinebench, this should be interesting since this has hyperthreading and the N150 doesn't. And yeah, there it is. I guess I can share the screen with you. This is what I'm looking at. So the AMD Ryzen 5 on the Cinebench R23 multi-core, a 3,544 point score versus a 2,518 point score. And again, that's where those extra threads are going to come in. And then, of course, the integrated graphics are still better on the 4-year-old AMD Ryzen chip versus the fairly recently released N150. On Cinebench 2024, which I've never run on my tests yet, it looks like they didn't verify the Intel side of things, but that's its score there. And I'm assuming the site is all accurate. There's a bunch of different benchmarks, multi-core, etc. That looks like the Intel processor was not tested, so that job of comparison is not yet completed here on the site. But if we look overall, eventually there should be some summary here. They look pretty equal in a lot of ways, with I'd say the AMD's just a little better And if they're both the same price, and if you're not a particular fanboy of Intel or AMD, you might be better off going on the AMD side for value, for what you're getting for your dollar. Despite the fact that the N150s will all have Windows 11 on them, because they just came out a few months ago, because this chip was introduced, well, probably before Windows 11 was introduced, it would make sense that it was built and designed for Windows 10. But the difference between Windows 10 and Windows 11 isn't that extreme. You really need a machine that's over 10 years old, mostly, to have any compatibility problems. So this is absolutely meeting the Windows 11 24H2 requirements, no different than any other brand new processor you would be buying today. It's just that it's an older design, and as such, the general public just, they're not clamoring for this when we talk about especially enthusiasts versus, let's say, the businesses and home users. And the reason why businesses and home users may not be buying these is they are not aware of them. And that's part of my job here, isn't to tell you what you should or shouldn't buy, but rather to introduce you to products that you might say, wow, I didn't know that existed, I want one of those, or that's interesting, not for me, but it might come up in conversation with somebody I know that might be interested in that, and just to make you aware these options do exist. Companies like Wowie don't have big marketing budgets, so they kind of fly under the radar for those who know. And for folks in IT that have clients, they might recommend systems like this to their clients to save money. But the clients themselves will be like, what's that? And it's the IT guy's job to explain, this is what it is, this is why I recommend it, it's cheap, they're available, we should buy them now where we can get them, because once they sell out, they're probably not making any more of them. And it's all about timing. And for business use, if you're opening up Word and Excel and you're sending emails and you're going to Facebook, or you're opening PDF files, Microsoft Office, Gmail, paying bills online, even if you want to rip DVDs. And while I don't promote piracy, you can buy a USB drive external, plug it into the USB plug here, and that plug will provide the power and the data connection to the external DVD drive. So it's just one USB plug, and then you can do whatever you want. You need access to a DVD or a CD or even a Blu-ray, you just plug it in. Amazon sells these as add-on items through USB. You could even still buy USB 1.44 megabyte floppy drives if your heart so desires. They sell them. You don't have to worry about, oh, well, this doesn't have room for me to add a DVD. If you're one of the few people still doing that, just get yourself an external DVD drive. They're about $5 more than an internal one. And you have the freedom to move it around from PC to PC. It's not just permanently mounted in a box. It's really nice to have that option. For my clients that they still need a DVD on occasion, we used to build all the computers with DVD drives. Well, if the DVD drives are $25 a piece, and there's 10 computers, that's $250 added to the total cost of those PCs. But if we can buy, let's say, 2 external DVD drives for $30 a piece, and you just put it somewhere where everybody knows in the office, if you need a DVD drive, come into the parts closet, you know, where the pens and the markers and the Post-it notes are, and grab one and plug it in, and when you're done, go put it back. And if for any reason that doesn't work, there's a second one. Or if 2 people need it at the same time, right? There's never a situation that's ever occurred where 2 people in the office both need a DVD drive at the same time. And if we ever upgrade the machines, again, that's another part we don't have to move or replace, especially as more and more cases don't provide the external access for a 5 1/4 inch drive. And some people say, well, the DVD is slower going through the USB. It isn't. That's just not true. SATA-based mechanical drives, solid-state drives, anything SATA-based is limited by the SATA speeds, which were fast 20 years ago. But by today's standards, they're a quarter of what USB can do, especially if it's USB 3. And of course, it depends which version of USB. I'm not going to get into all that because it gets confusing. But if you've got a blue USB port, you're doing at least, I'd say at least 5, if not 10 gigabits per second. And that's going to put you at a minimum of maximum SATA speeds. So just to demonstrate here, let me jump back over to my OBS screen. Oh, we're already at 80%. This is moving right along. I always have 2 external DVD drives on hand at all times. And part of the reason for that is I can loan one out, right? If somebody needs one and it doesn't leave me without one, because, you know, Murphy's Law, I won't need it for 2 years. The minute somebody says, hey, can I borrow it? The next day I need it. So I always have 2. They're cheap enough. This one's made by Asus. And it's got 2 USB plugs just in case your USB is being utilized by other devices that are drawing more power. So this doesn't have enough power to run. If that's the case, if you plug it in, and for whatever reason this isn't registering, then find another USB port and plug the second plug in. That's just there for the additional power boost. Very rarely do I ever have to use that. And it shouldn't really matter which one you use. I usually use the one in the middle. It's a thicker cable, and I don't know if you're supposed to use one over the other, but in my view, I use the main cable. The thicker one is my main USB plug. And then the secondary cable is, if we don't get enough juice to this, I know I've got to plug the second one in to get that power boost. All this is doing is, I believe this is just power delivery, and the thicker cable is power and data. So probably if you only plug this end in, it's not going to work. It's either this end or both. And that way you don't deal with a separate power adapter. This one has a drawer that pops open like a laptop DVD player. It reads CDs, DVDs. Some of these even do Blu-ray. I can also record on this, and there is no performance difference at all. It's not any slower. So these are like $30. You buy it once, you're good to go. And it's bigger than the mini PC. Look how much bigger that is. Granted, it's not as tall, but it's wider and longer. I think if we put a DVD on top of this, the DVD would sort of hang off the edges. That's how small this is. So you can get it done today. For most type of home user use case scenarios, this covers it. This should do everything most people want to do. Now, if you have some extreme work you want to do, like video editing or game playing, you shouldn't be looking at a budget machine, in my opinion, or you should be really patient. Just realized that had gone to sleep on us. Let me check our sleep settings here. Go down here and we'll just type in edit power. There we go. Yeah, so it was set to show off the display after 10 minutes. I'll put that to 3 hours, and putting the computer to sleep would be great if we were trying to save batteries. But given that this is not a battery-operated device, I don't understand why anybody would want to put the computer to sleep. The monitor, that's a different story. So now my question is, what happened to our Windows 11 install? This box right here, right? We're at 82%. So we got really far quickly, and then everything slows down. And this is normal. That percentage done is not a division of time, but a division of progress, or representation of progress. And so things that progress quickly jump us to the 50%, let's just say, of the installation process. And then the other 50%, which is much more resource intensive, could take 4 times longer. So people get that confused. And it's easy and understandable why they would, where that progress bar is not an accurate representation of how much time is left, but only how much work has been done. But all the work isn't the same. What it's doing at 1% or 10% or 75% may be more or less resource intensive. There's no rule to it. It could be the other way around, where the first 10% takes forever and the final 90% skips right along. Because again, it's not an estimation of time, it is a percentage of completion. So we've been on 82% longer than it took us to get to 82%. And that's normal. That's just how Microsoft does it. All right, let me look back over at the chat. David Graham said he's got 2 Blu-ray portable reader recorders. Yeah, they're very handy once you get them. you know, you realize you don't need those internal ones anymore. It's not like I've got to get a case with an internal, an internal drive bay access. They're getting harder and harder to find, and companies are pretty much stopping production of Blu-ray DVD drives and CD drives because they're not selling. So they're moving their manufacturing onto other items that do sell, that the public's buying. So if you do want to get an internal one, I'd suggest you jump right on that. Don't wait too long, because once inventories are sold out, you're going to be buying something used off eBay probably, or something refurbished. Or you can always get the USB devices. Those, I'm not exactly sure how the manufacturing of those differs, but I do believe they still make these today. Same with floppy drives, same thing. John wants to know the spec for storage and RAM. What we do is we put the links to everything we talk about in our video notes, so that for our viewers that want to know specific details, especially those who joined us late in the stream and missed all the earlier discussion, in order for us to avoid repeating ourselves, which we already do enough of, we will direct you to use the links in the video notes to take you directly to the Amazon or the official product page. And if there's still questions remaining regarding what's in it, then let us know and we'll do our best to provide an answer for you. But for the point of not torturing everybody who was here, who's already heard that earlier, well, we appreciate your questions. Do understand that these videos can be rewound, and you can just drag the progress meter down below the video on this live video to go back and see what you have missed. That was all covered much earlier. Nick Poverman would love to see the device manager and see if it's found all the drivers. Well, I imagine a brand new machine with a fresh install of Windows 10 is what we've seen, would have all the drivers. Now, after the Windows 11 upgrade, would that still be the same? Usually the Windows 10 and 11 drivers are identical, but let's right-click on the Start menu, and we'll check it. We'll go to Device Manager, see if we got any complaints in here. No, everything's happy. No issues. Under Security Devices, we should have a TPM in here. There it is, Trusted Platform Module. Yeah, I don't, typically, if I see something in the Device Manager that's not loaded, it's usually because we're working with a prototype. Or, as I mentioned, after we do our Windows 11 install, we check the Device Manager just to make sure that the drivers that are installed now are Windows 11 compatible. And if they're not, that Microsoft replaced them automatically. So that would be just the only other time we check. And we've gone up 1 percentage point to 83%. So we are making some progress, but do remind me and I'll check it again. I don't expect there to be any issues, particularly because the hardware is not brand new hardware, in the sense it's not the latest network card. It's not the latest Wi-Fi 7 driver. These are things that Windows Update may not be provided with yet, and takes 1 year to 2 years for Windows Update to get that. So this has been out long enough that in theory, everything that, all the drivers that this would need should already be provided by Windows Update if the ones it has now for any reason need to be replaced. This is typically a problem, again, we see with prototypes, or we see with bleeding edge hardware where the drivers just aren't available through Windows Update yet. But that's what you expect if you want to be the first. And by the first, I mean if you want to buy a product within its first year of being introduced to the market, expect to have to put some drivers on manually. That's par for the course. Once you go a little bit older, you can save a lot of money getting the year before's tech, which has already been polished and shined. They've already worked out all the bugs and kinks and issues. Typically, that's all worked out. People that bought 13th and 14th gen Intel CPUs when they first came out suffered through all kinds of problems that anybody who buys a 13th or 14th gen CPU today will never have those problems. And that hasn't even been a year yet on the 14th gen. But by a year, that should have already happened. So the latest BIOS update, the latest polishing in manufacturing, and a cheaper price. Because when it first came out, there's all these people that got to have it. They've got all this money. They're happy to say, take my money. They want the latest, and they deal with headaches. The rest of us don't have to spend that kind of money. We don't have to deal with those kind of problems. And I'm not saying one is bad, but for me, I'm not going to turn a customer into a guinea pig. If you want to turn yourself into a guinea pig, don't let me get in your way. 2 reasons I won't do that to a customer. Number 1, it makes me look bad if the product has issues that are beyond my control. So let's take the 13th and 14th gen Intel CPUs. Nothing I could do except wait for the manufacturers of the motherboards and the CPU manufacturer to address the problem and instill a fix, which they worked on. They had several beta BIOSes that had come out and they weren't quite right. And eventually they got it right with feedback from the public. Now that's all solved. Also, the price is higher when the product first comes out, when it's introduced. Today, those products are much less expensive. They're much more affordable. And those problems that people had that paid the most, those of us paying less won't have those problems. So for my customers to make sure that they stay up and productive, to make sure that any issues don't cost me money where I support them at my cost, essentially, and then have them think maybe I don't know what I'm doing and I'm not a very good tech and maybe they should be replacing me, then affects my business even more drastically in future revenue. So I need those referrals. I need happy customers. And when I'm selling or recommending a product to a customer, I have to have some experience with it to have an understanding that, well, I can't prevent every problem from occurring. I can know out of the gate if a product has a good reputation. But it takes time to build a reputation. And a product that's brand new, just introduced, their reputation has not been established yet. And so if you like to be first and you have that money and you don't mind dealing with the problems, thank you. Because of you, the rest of us don't have to. So I'm not putting it down. I'm saying it's not good for business to sell untested equipment, unproven equipment to my customers that represents me. Now, this takes it a little bit to an extreme. We're going back a couple of years on this one, but also the price is really extreme. I cannot believe you're getting an entire computer for, $140. The entire computer, everything, the power supply, the motherboard, the CPU, the cooler, the RAM, the storage, the operating system, the case, the Wi-Fi, the Bluetooth. How is that even possible? And you think, well, it's got to be tragically slow. Not really. I mean, by today's standards, Windows updates, like you might say, well, this update takes a while. This update's going to take a while on any computer. This is not a fast update on any machine. And like I said, this is a great burn-in test to see how well does this machine work. Is it going to blue screen? This is a great way to find out under a real use case scenario and not a simulated benchmark that never comes close to how users use their computers in reality. It's so extreme and extraordinary that to run benchmarks as a basis of determining how well the computer, how reliable the computer is basically torturing the heck out of the computer beyond a reasonable means that the average user would ever even come close to. So, well, it's a great way to establish a score if you're curious. That doesn't really tell me how you feel. Benchmarks in AI, they're never going to replace people in the sense that I'll never be able to call an AI plumber and have the AI show up to my house and fix my plumbing, right? Services where involve human beings, and those jobs are secure. At the same side of things, there's no benchmark for how you feel. And the best benchmark, when I ask customers about how they feel about their computer upgrades or replacement computers, I want to know their specific perspective, because I cannot read their mind and I cannot assume that they see it the same way I see it. So after I've installed or upgraded a computer for a client, I give them a couple of days. If I don't hear from them, I follow up. I say, how's that new computer running? And they'll say, yeah, whatever. And then I say, does it seem faster to you? Is it noticeably different from the one you had before? And you get all kinds of different answers. And based on those answers, I can then offer a solution if one's needed or an explanation rather than have the customer wonder. And so that's the only benchmark in business that matters. That's real life and how things, the end user, how they feel. The computer may not be faster. The benchmark could say it's slower. But if the customer says this is much faster than my old one, the customer is right, because the customer's perception is not translated through a benchmark. So the benchmark has the technical answer, but the human has the most important answer, the answer that actually matters and cannot be argued with or tuned up to get a better score. I guess I could liquor up the customer and say, how about now? Is it faster now? That'd be like cheating, though. And you have to understand the importance of individual perspective, and that there is no one universal score by which we all agree is faster or feels faster. Depends on your perception and how you use the machine. And if we don't have that discussion, I'll never really know. So it either means the customer complains or doesn't complain. And I'd prefer, if I'm not hearing anything from the customer, to check in, right? To show I care, I'm thinking about them, and I'm just curious. Do you like that? Because I'll tell you something, if the customer says to me, this is a great machine, I really like it, then I know moving forward that for other people in that office or similar people that I see similarities to, that I can more confidently even recommend the same machine for them, knowing that someone in a similar field or in the same office really liked it. And that gives me the confidence and boldness to make a stronger recommendation. All right, let's go ahead and restart. Here's my restart button. That actually didn't take as long as I thought it was going to take. It actually did really good. Restart now. Now, of course, during the restart, it's going to finish updates, so it'll be a little bit before our desktop comes back up. And again, that's just part of the 24H2 process. Phil Stodd said, as a support tech, how many of the features of Windows do your customers actually use? You know, what's interesting is I have customers using features I didn't even know were a part of Windows. And we just deal with that on a as needed basis. So a customer might call and say after a Windows update, a certain feature they use doesn't work anymore, or it doesn't work the same way. And I had no idea what they're talking about. And that's why I love remote access, because I can just, say to the client, can I remote in? I get in through instant house call. I say, show me what you're talking about. Okay, what is it you're doing? Because I have no idea, I've never heard of this thing before. Windows has so many bells, whistles, and features. I've never had a client use that feature before, but let me understand you correctly and what you're describing, demonstrate it to me, and then I can Google it and figure out, is there a fix for this, or are a bunch of other people who use that feature complaining? And if a bunch of people are complaining, I know there's really nothing I can do, right? That's just Microsoft's changed it. So it's not a question of how many people use all of the features. I don't know that anybody uses all of them. We don't live in a world of absolutes where it's all or nothing, right? There's this giant middle area where of all the bells, whistles, and features of Windows, I may have one client using a feature no other client uses, and yet another client using a feature no other client uses. And in the bulk of the clients, just doing everything basic, right? Nothing unusual or unfamiliar to me. But rest assured, that's a regular occurrence where I get a call or an email request for support regarding a feature that I have no idea what they're talking about, and they have to demonstrate it to me. And I go, oh, okay, now I understand, because they use their computers differently than how I use mine. Toy Friend said the Amazon description says it's Windows 10 Home on here. Yeah, so they're probably, that's interesting. Thank you for checking that. I wasn't paying attention. Then the product description is accurate, and this is likely old inventory. And the way you blow out your old inventory is you just discount the price until you sell out. So timing is everything if you want a really good deal, right? This isn't like a brand new machine that came out as a budget machine. This machine came out as a budget machine years ago and has since been reduced in value simply because the technology has aged to a point that even though the machine is still new, it's still sitting on a shelf somewhere unsold. And so they need to use that shelf space for more modern models. That's what it sounds like is happening. And I'm sure quantities are limited. So if you're on the fence about it, my advice would be get it from Amazon so you have your 30-day return window. That way you can decide which side of the fence you're on by actually having it. Otherwise, you already know if this is for you or not. But if you hesitate and you wait, and then you decide in a week or two, you know what, I think I will buy it, they will probably be sold out and that'll be the end of it. Now, there'll always be another machine, some other manufacturer, some other model that'll likely be comparable at some point. Probably not too long from now, but it does mean, having to pay attention and be aware, because even then when they go on sale, they'll only go on sale for a little bit of time. And then either they sell out or the sale ends, and then you'll have to wait for the next one. So when I show these, and especially in this case, given what we know now, this is likely an inventory blowout type of situation that they're just, once the inventory's gone, the deal's done. There is a possibility somebody buys one from Amazon, they don't like it, they send it back, and that the returned items replenish some inventory of Amazon warehouse deals. That's possible too. Although we wouldn't know the reason why they sent it back. Did they not like it? Did they change their mind? Or is there a problem with it? But if you're buying from Amazon warehouse, you still have the same 30-day return. It just may not be out of the box the same way I showed it if somebody's already taken it out of the box. And you know what's in the box, so you know if anything's missing. Sometimes when you buy products from Amazon that are returned, there are little parts that are missing. But you shouldn't be missing anything critical like the power adapter and the machine itself, and the storage and RAM of the machine should not be altered. But it's possible the Visa bracket is missing, or the instructions are missing, or some of the packing material might be missing. And Amazon does say that's possible on our returned items. But again, you still have that 30 days if it's purchased from Amazon warehouse. Okay, our Windows 11 24H2 is concluded. Let me close out camera 1 and let's go full screen on camera 2. Well, it's full screen for you at home, but not for me. Now it's full screen for me. And let's take another look at the device manager and let's see if everything's still happy. Still happy. Now, one of the things to keep in mind is we do have a small amount of storage on this. And Windows 11 24H2 allows you to downgrade to your previous version of Windows somewhere between 15 and 30 days, meaning we have 2 copies of Windows taking up a lot of space on our storage right now. So if we look at our available storage, we will have doubled it from what it was. So right now, if I right-click, go to Properties of the C drive, we are using, it's not too bad, 56 gigs of space, and it's just Windows. But the problem is, if you look on the C drive, we'll have an old Windows directory, windows.old. And that directory, just looking at it, go to the Properties, is taking up a significant amount of space, especially if you're dealing with a small amount of storage. I will say the average customer, the average home and business customer that I work with, no matter how old the computer is, very rarely do they have over 100 gigs of actual storage that's in use. They might have a terabyte drive, they're only using 10% of it at the most. Now, there are some differences with some customers, but overall, the average home user and the average business user in an office environment, they're going to be using under 100 gigs. So the fact that this is only a 256 gig storage is part of the reason why the machine's so cheap. I can show you solid state storage that's 4 times more money than this whole computer if that's what you want is large capacity, high performance storage. But it wouldn't make sense to try and put that into a budget machine. These two things don't go together. Well, you could put a 4 terabyte Western Digital SN850X in there. That drive will set you back $600. Sorry, the 8 terabyte drive will set you back $600. And for $600, you could buy 4 of these computers, which added up would give you a terabyte of storage. So it doesn't make any sense for somebody to do that. These are really designed to just take out of the box and start utilizing. If what you're looking for is a project box to upgrade, you should just be buying the box pre-configured with what you want upgraded. You'll spend less money. Anyway, we got about 26 gigs in here that we can get rid of, because I know I'm never going to roll this machine back to Windows 10, and I do want all of that drive space back. So I'm going to just type in disk cleanup, which is a built-in Windows utility, and hit cleanup system files here, and let it scan through temp files. And by the way, everybody should be doing this on your computer. Everybody watching this with a Windows-based computer should be running the disk cleanup tool. I'd recommend once a month. But you know, all those Windows updates you've been installing, all the installers are just sitting there. Once you clean it up, you cannot uninstall those updates anymore. But who's doing that? Like, I haven't had to uninstall an update for a customer in 2 or 3 years. So I feel very confident in saying, look, the machine's working fine. All the updates we've got are fine. Let's just clean all those installation files out of there. And if you haven't done this ever, or if you haven't done this in a long time, you're going to free up a bunch of your drive real estate that's being consumed by Windows files that are just sitting in the background that you likely will never use, instead of freeing that space up for more space for you to use. But if you don't know this is going on, you could get trapped into buying some rip-off system utility that damages your system and empties your wallet for something you can do for free right in Windows. And what I'll do is I check every single box that comes up. I want every box to be checked. I don't even care what the box says. Everything listed in here is junk you don't need. Then it shows the estimation of how much space we're going to free up, and I click OK. So I'm going to free up the old Windows install, which will happen on its own in time, but I want it right now. I don't want to wait. So when it gets to the removing the previous version of Windows, it's going to give me a warning that I will not be able to roll back to Windows 10. I'll have to reinstall Windows 10 from scratch instead of just uninstalling Windows 11. Are you sure? And again, it's going to do this on its own in 15 to 30 days anyway. Because our drive space is so limited, I want every byte returned to me that is being consumed by an unnecessary file. So here it says we're checking, cleaning up drive C. Previous Windows installations will typically come up with a warning before it proceeds. Are you sure you want to clean up previous installs? Because if so, you will not be able to roll back. And then I say yes, and that's the bulk of where our drive space is being consumed right now. Of the consumed space, nearly half of it is the previous version of Windows. So nearly half of the consumed space, not half of the available space. I don't want to confuse you. So we'll let that run. Apparently it didn't ask me for confirmation. I'm not sure why it didn't ask, but this can take a few minutes because that's a lot of gigs of files, and it's essentially deleting it. Just so you understand, it's deleting it file by file. It's not just wiping out entire directories. So if there's 25,000 files in there, it goes through each one individually and erases it. That's why this can take so long. Same with your temp file folder. Same with the Windows Update installation files, one by one. So it would be faster if they just like remove the directory, but that's for whatever reason not how the engineers at Microsoft do that. But be patient and do know that once this is complete, you should restart the computer, because there may be files it can't delete while you're in Windows. Sometimes it can and sometimes it can't. And the reason, or how you'll know, is if you restart immediately after this is done, it'll say installing updates, which really means it's finishing the cleanup process. So it's kind of lying to you, right? Because that has nothing to do with Windows updates. But that's the generic message that pops up. And what that is that's the remnants of the system cleanup finishing. And that usually isn't on the screen very long. Let me look back at the chat and see, does Storage Sense not auto clean all files? So there is a feature, this is from Ben Laird asking that question. There is a feature in Windows called Storage Sense. You can type it down here in your search. And I will turn that on. But what you'll find is if you do a manual cleanup with Storage Sense, and you're welcome to try this right now, manually run it and then run disk cleanup. And disk cleanup will clean up all the stuff Storage Sense left behind. So I like to use both. Storage Sense for regular maintenance, but one thing you should never do, never ever do, is trust automation. It's been the same since my first experience ever with a computer, and it hasn't changed since the 1980s. Computers that are set to automate things need to be audited on a regular basis to ensure they're doing the job thoroughly and properly, or just haven't given up altogether. You can set the automation up, but you should be regularly checking on it to ensure that it's doing a complete job. And the automation will always have limits. And you may not be aware of what those limits are until you realize something's not completed. And the only way you're going to be aware of that is by staying on top of it. What it does is it reduces the amount of times you have to check it. So if I ran a disk cleanup by hand once a month, I could turn on Storage Sense and run disk cleanup every 3 or 4 months instead. But you still need to do that. At least if you want to get the best performance, remove temp files and free up drive space, you have to do it yourself. You cannot rely on automation to do anything but just generic work. It's not going to do the final polishing. You'll always have to come in and do the final polishing. But it can reduce the overall workload, requiring you to check it less. But I would encourage you, absolutely run Storage Sense, and then immediately after run disk cleanup and clean up system files. And I think you'll be shocked how much Storage Sense does not clean everything. Or try it the other way around. Run disk cleanup with cleanup storage, let that run, reboot, and then run Storage Sense, and you'll see how much stuff disk cleanup missed. I have no explanation for it, but there it is. Bill Stodd said he turns off hibernation in the Windows GUI. I still found Hibernate running in the background. That's why I use Uncle Carey's Windows 10 optimization tool. It does that for us, which I run that on every machine. Bill Stodd said, what else is Windows hiding? I don't think Windows is hiding that. You're just not looking. If I have a broom closet and you're in my house trying to find my brooms, and I explained to you the brooms are in the broom closet, that doesn't mean anything to you. Which closet is the broom closet? I have to point out this one. Oh, well, what else do you have hiding? That's not hiding. That's exactly where it's supposed to be. You just didn't know. This is a little tricky psychologically because I like things to be in their place. Just because you don't know those things are where that place is, doesn't mean I'm hiding them from you. Frank Jimmy said it's crazy when clients use 20-year-old software that's no longer supported. And when it breaks, they call you expecting you to know everything about it and how to fix it. And they've used it for 20 years, not me. Yeah, we all deal with that. And furthermore, if that software is so critically important, why haven't they upgraded it and replaced it? That's the frustrating part. If their business needs a critical piece of software for their business to operate, why would you cheap out on that? If you make your living doing something, if you're a chef and you're cooking meals, do you want to buy the cheapest pots and pans that are going to break down and scratch up? Or should you buy some good quality pots and pans so you don't have to keep replacing pots and pans, right? It has nothing to do with the food cooking. It just has to do with the tools you're using. If you were to see a dentist or a surgeon that was using 20-year-old tools, do you want to go through with whatever service that surgeon or dental technician is providing? Like if you see them pull out some 1920s torture device, which today modern dentists don't use tools like that, would you sit there and be polite and let them use a pair of pliers on your teeth? Or would you say, you know what, I'm going to take my business somewhere else? Because from the dentist's perspective, they can save a lot of money. They're not buying the latest and greatest tools. If the chair you're sitting in has tears in it, because a dental chair is very expensive to replace, what does that tell you about the type of work that dentist is going to do? How capable are they if these are the tools they've got to work with? In the same way, if you ask me to open this mini PC and all I have is my bare hands and a butter knife, I'm going to look pretty incompetent to you, don't you think? It's important that if we're skilled tradesmen, that we're using the appropriate tools to get a job done. And this has never been more true in almost any service, from mechanic to, I'll go back to plumber. Plumbers have some of the most incredible tools available today where they can get a job done so much faster than a DIYer, a do-it-yourselfer. Not only because they have these tools that make the job easier, but they've got experience using the tools efficiently. I have seen professional plumbers change the valve on a main water line that is not shut off. And you'll see them cut through the pipe in like 2 seconds with the tool they've got. The water's gushing out. They put the new valve on it. They clamp it down, turn it on, turn it off, and they just use a garbage bucket to collect the water if it's in a building or if they're doing it outside. And then ask an amateur to do that. And watch how messy and how wet they get and how long it takes for them to fight the water coming out and then crimp that end down and be able to do that quickly, especially if they're not even using the same tools. Now suddenly it's the exact same job, the exact same valve, and the exact same scenario, and the only difference is the experience of the person doing it and the tools the experienced person hopefully has that makes their job expedient. And the great thing about doing a service expediently is you can service more people in one day, and you're charging less per job because you're not spending as much time. Your customers are happier, and you as a service personnel are happier that you can help more people in the same 8-hour day than you used to be able to doing it the hard way, which is what a lot of amateurs do to save money. And when amateurs do that to save money, they usually end up taking 3 times longer and spending 3 times more. But this is the world we live in. It's a little insulting to me that somebody thinks, well, I can just do all this stuff myself. You can. Absolutely. I'm not doing anything you can't do. But I have some tools you probably don't have that cost a lot of money that you probably wouldn't invest in if you only need to use them once. And it doesn't mean you won't get the job done, but you're going to struggle doing things that I will be able to get in and out of faster because I have the right tools and the experience to use them. One example would be if I strip out a screw. A few years ago, I had a laptop come in. You know what? Let's reboot this while I'm talking. And we were filming live, and the laptop was getting a hard drive to SSD upgrade, and one of the 4 screws holding the drive in stripped out. It was in so tight I couldn't get it out. Whoops, hold on a second. Let me go full screen over here. I'm just curious if this is going to give us the updates. If it says it's updating, then it's still doing disk cleanup. It might not. But this way I make sure either way I reboot afterwards to make sure those file cleanup process is completed either way. It's the only way I know for sure. Then we'll go back and check our drive space and see how much we've freed up. Now, as I was saying, so I had a drive a few years ago back at Studio A, and the screw stripped out. I couldn't get the screw out. And I ended up going old school with a mechanical drill and a bit to drill through the head of the screw. And it was brought to my attention there are screw extraction pliers that I didn't even know existed. And once I found out that it existed, I bought 3 different sizes, and it's one of my favorite tools ever. And I've seen other YouTube channel repair videos where they're struggling with getting a screw extracted, and I'm like, dude, you got to know about these. Now I'm the person telling them about it. Um, let me go full screen here on camera one momentarily so I can show you these. These are made by a Japanese company called Engineer. There's also a brand called Vampliers. Vampliers. They're pricey, but man, are they made well. And let me show you how these work. Let's say we have a screw, and I'll just take one out of this bag here just to demonstrate. And it's got like a flat head on it, like a hard drive mounting screw in a laptop. And it's a really small Phillips end. So let's just use one of these little tiny screws. You know, I didn't want to drill out this guy's screws in his laptop and have metal shavings inside the laptop. Everything worked fine, but it was a very amateur and unprofessional way to handle it. But I was live on camera, and that was the only tool I could think of that could, you know, prevent us from having to stop the video and figure out this problem. So for the sake of being live on stage, if you will, doing a live demonstration, having a screw head strip out where it won't turn, I tried a couple different things, and my bottom line was just getting a drill. That's not the right way to do it. I got it done and everything's fine, but man, I worked way harder than I had to. And then you had to make sure we blew out all the shavings and got all the metal shavings out of the machine, which we did. But nonetheless, it would have been so much cleaner and faster to have these screw extraction pliers. And you'll see at the end of them, they have a mouth. And yes, you can use these like regular pliers, right? You can use them as wire cutters. That's not what I use these for. I could if I wanted to. Let's say we've got this little tiny screw, and let's just say it's all cammed out, and we can't get a driver to just do anything but spin in there. This is designed, see how flush the nose is? So the nose can go right up to the screw, no matter how flush it is, like on a laptop, where you don't have a lot of room. So you just put it down on the head of the screw, and you just start to turn it, rotate it, and it'll back that screw right out. Now, had I known that these existed, I would have bought a pair years ago. I didn't even know this was a thing. And I've got to tell you, there have been a couple of times that I've used these where normally I freak out a little bit. I go, oh man, I got a strip screw. How am I going to solve this? Because I never solve it the same way twice. Well, now I solve it the same way every time. Every time. These. In fact, when we were doing our renovations here a couple of weeks ago, we had whoever lived here was sticking 4-inch long lag bolts into things like a towel bar holder. Like how that screw didn't go through the other side of the wall, I don't know, but nobody in their right mind should be putting screws this long into their walls. That's insane. Well, I took out the bottom screw and I used my electric drill, so I didn't have to sit there and do this for 20 minutes. Got the first one out, zipped it right out. But the second screw, all it did was start camming out the screw. So I said, okay, can't use the electric impact drill on this. So I grabbed a regular Phillips screwdriver and I start turning it, and it turns a little bit, but man, I'm tightening and loosening, tightening and loosening, tightening and loosening, and it starts stripping it out more. And this thing is in there. I don't know what they put it in with, but I thought, oh, I know what to do. I'll grab these. And sure enough, when I grabbed it with these and turned it, it created a blister on my hand because this doesn't give me the best leverage. I could have used a bigger pair. And I wasn't thinking about that at the time. I just, hey, I got an excuse to use my Vampliers. Or are these the Vampliers or the Engineer? These are the Engineer brand. They're both excellent brands. They're built really, really well. They have a nice, comfortable grip on them. I know this sounds like an advertisement for these, but I'm telling you, I'm so glad a viewer made me aware of these. So I start backing that screw out, and I get it about that far out of the wall. And I think I'll just grab this, now I can grab it by the edge. I couldn't even turn it. It would not turn. So then I was kind of stuck, and I'm like, now what do I do? I've got it a 1/2 inch backed away from the wall, but there's still a good 3 inches still in there. And I mean, nothing that I do, I can't move it. So again, I start working it back and forth, tighten, loosen, tighten, loosen. It's just not coming. So I asked my handyman, I said, you know, I've been trying to prep this room and get it ready for you because all this stuff's going to get replaced and I want the holes that are left behind filled before we paint and get this room nice. But I'm stuck. I don't know what to do. And that's not something I say very often. But I know when to call it. And I thought, you know, this handyman probably deals with stuck screws. Remember, the stuck screws I deal with are tiny. These are, you know, stuff going into the walls of the house here. And he goes, oh, here. And immediately, without even thinking, he pulls out his vice grips. And I'm like, I got a set of vice grips, right? So then I put the vice grips, full size, like mechanical vice grips that you'd use on a car, clamp those on, make it nice and tight. And then you get all the leverage of the vice grip to just start spinning it around. Not only was that easier on my hands, but that screw just backed out easily. And, you know, I had to manually turn it for all of the threads. And that finally got it out. Without the right tool, the alternative would have been maybe to cut that screw off and just fill it in with some filler. But I didn't want to do it that way because that's not the right way. I wanted the screw out. And it was just that one last screw, and it's always the last one. Like everything was going fine. I had everything stripped down, that one screw. And I initially thought, all right, I'm just going to get my Van pliers and take that out. And once it backed out a ½ inch, I thought, oh, it's going to come out fine. Nope. Would not budge. But remember how much leverage we're using, just like a socket, like a ratcheting socket wrench. The longer the bar is, the more leverage you get on it. And it just didn't occur to me to use the vice grips. But having the right tool had nothing to do with my ability to remove. Like my personal ability, my physical ability was the same. But the tool made me more effective at accomplishing the job. So let me go back over to our desktop over here. And again, there's going to be some updates to Windows 11 24H2. So we can check for those updates now. And while it's checking, I'm going to show you how much drive space we've got. Because before we were about 60 gigs or something of used space. I'm going to turn this on and we'll go to advanced options. There's 0 available here. But I do want updates to install automatically and to just let me know when a restart is required. I don't want it just randomly restarting. And yeah, you can see we've got some updates to 24H2. And again, you're going to do this with any new computer. You may not necessarily be coming off Windows 10. It's no big deal, and it's no different if you are. Want to right-click, not right-click, we'll go to the yellow folder, Windows Explorer, and let's see how much drive space we're using now. Right-click on Properties, and it says we're only using 39 gigs instead of, I think it was 59. That's nearly half of the consumed storage freed up, and that makes a big difference. When you're dealing with a budget machine, you're not dealing with ultra high performance. This is not going to be a Gen 4 drive. This is not going to be a high capacity drive. If you want that, buy a machine that has that. I guarantee you it's going to cost you more. And if that's what you want, it'll be cheaper for you to buy that already installed than for you to upgrade it yourself, unless you have something laying around the house you want to use. But set your expectations accordingly, because you will have no warranty probably on whatever you're using around the house. Versus if you buy the unit exactly equipped the way you want it, then all of that stuff is under warranty together. So again, depending on how much peace of mind you want and how important it is to you, if you screw it up or the part you replace causes a problem, you know that's on you, not on the manufacturer, and you're the one responsible for fixing it and addressing it. And it's not to be taken out on the manufacturer that you did that to yourself. You can if you want to, but set your expectations accordingly. Let me just check and see if there's other questions. We're about 2 hours into today's broadcast, so we're gonna start wrapping things up here, but I do want to make sure that if you've asked something and I haven't seen it, that I give you that I have the opportunity to answer you. So please repost your question. If I missed it, it scrolled away. Just put your question back in there now, and I'll do my best to provide an answer for you. Bill Stodd said, next time try left-handed drill bits. I do have a drill extractor kit, a screw extractor kit, but it's very difficult. I did try using it. It's one of my go-tos. And I bought it off Amazon because they had a door hinge that cammed out. Just one screw cammed out. I got all the other door hinge screws removed, but the last one wouldn't come out. And I bought the drill bit that's basically, it drills a hole in the head of the screw, and in the reversed side of it has a reverse thread. So the drill is always on the tighten mode, but the threads are going the other way, and the threads go into the hole you made in the head of the screw and start backing the screw out. That did work, but it took a lot of patience, and I didn't know what I was doing. And I immediately went to that drill bit extraction kit, and it wasn't working, and I just didn't have the patience. I'm like, there's just shouldn't be this hard. But I do have the screw extraction kit that's used for a drill, but because you're drilling into a steel screw, it takes a while to initially drill that pilot hole, and for me anyway, it's hard to know if I've got the depth right until I flip the bit around and try it the other way. And after about 3 or 4 attempts, I lost my patience with it. And I'm like, there's got to be another way. This is way too difficult. But the screw extraction bit did work to back out the screw. That was essentially a door that had been painted, and they didn't cover up the door hardware. So the hinges and the screws, everything got painted, the door jamb, all of it. And that paint was like glue. And, and then you've got to be careful once you get the screws out, that when you pull the hinge away from the door jamb, that the paint doesn't just rip the wood off. You've got to get a razor blade and cut the paint. It's so sloppy that someone couldn't buy $3 worth of painter's tape to cover up the door hardware. And I'm talking the door latch, everything in the door jamb was painted. Everything. The hook on the back of the door, painted. So sloppy. So to remove the hook on the back of the door, it's probably going to rip the whole back of the door open. So I guess we're going to just live with that hook. Otherwise, it's $150 for a new door. All because someone didn't put a little painter's tape on it and paint around it. So disgusted by it. A professional painter would be masking things before they started painting. Clearly, whoever painted this house, whoever had it, did not know how to paint. They didn't understand you shouldn't be painting any of the hardware, including the light fixtures, everything attached to the ceiling, the outlets, just paint it all. And of course, all of that had to be replaced. So it's a big job, but it's being done right. It's expensive and it's slow going, and I'm doing as much of it that I can do myself, but it's a lot. But the end result's looking really good. Scotty wants to know, how can I enable secure boot? TPM is okay. It's on a 10-year build that's so good. Well, it depends on the 10-year build if it supports secure boot. It may not. That's basically, you need a UEFI BIOS. If you do not have, if your BIOS on your 10-year-old build is just a legacy BIOS, it's just not going to be an option for you. It's like asking, how can I convert my Ford Model T to an all-electric vehicle? There is no kit that you can buy to do that. You basically just need to buy a new car if that's what you want. Not to say that some hobbyist or enthusiast couldn't invent something, but it would be a customized piece that, you know, was just for that car, one time, one off, based on the creator's vision. For what you're asking, unless you know how to program BIOSes, it's not worth your time and effort. If it's not a UEFI BIOS, you can just scratch it right off your list. Don't waste your time even investigating it. It's not going to happen. Now, if you want to tell us a make and model of motherboard, we might be able to be a little clearer, but just in general, if it's 10 years old, it's probably not UEFI. Davis Parsons says that I need to go to Harbor Freight Tools more often. I can't go there without buying some tool I don't already have. You know, Harbor Freight Tools is a real delight for me growing up in the 1980s without any money, that we had to use what tools my parents had. And nothing was complete. You didn't have a full metric set or a full standard set. It was whatever we had. Who knows where some of the tools went? Who knows where some of the sockets went? We used a lot of a crescent wrench, oftentimes an adjustable crescent wrench. We use a crowbar a lot back in the day. We used what we had because it was so expensive to go to Sears and to buy, these Craftsman tools. It's like 20 bucks for a wrench in that day's money. I didn't have 20 bucks to buy a wrench. Now you go to Harbor Freight, buy a wrench for $2. You can buy the whole set for $9.99. Are you kidding me? And someone will say, yeah, but they're cheap. Trust me, the tools we had were cheap and they got the job done. Now, if you're a trades craftsperson, you obviously don't want to buy cheap tools because you'll just have to keep replacing them every time they break. That'll end up costing you more money than just getting Mac or Snap-on, or what's the big brand that Harbor Freight has? It's blue. What are they called? Icon, I think is what they're called. And those cost a bit more than, say, the Pittsburgh steel. I'm happy with the Pittsburgh steel, which is, of course, made in China. That just seems so wrong. Pittsburgh steel. Well, Pittsburgh is known for the steel industry. These must be made in Pittsburgh. No, it's just the name. These are made in China. Okay. Scotty said he's got a Gigabyte H370 HD3. That's not 10 years old, Scotty. That's maybe 5 years old. H370, we built a lot of H370s with the 9th generation Intels. So if we're at 15th gen now, and let's just say a new gen comes out every year, you're just 6 years old at the worst. So on the Gigabyte H370, I don't have one here that I can demonstrate the BIOS to you, but I bet you we can Google that and there's probably a video that somebody has done in the past. Let me just take a quick look for you and see if I pull up anything here. We'll go to YouTube and I'll just type in, and you could probably go to Google too, but I'm specifically looking for a video. Enable Secure Boot Gigabyte H370. And I probably don't have to be any more specific because all the H370s should be about the same with the BIOS. And if I go to my window capture, you can see there's a lot of videos that walk you through this. This one's showing you AMD versus Intel. And these are a couple of years old, but the process should still be exactly the same. And that's what I would advise, is follow one of these videos and they'll walk you through it so that the BIOS you're looking at matches the BIOS on the screen. It's very rare that manufacturers use the same BIOS from different chipsets or that look like other manufacturers' BIOS. Like MSI BIOSes are very different in how you navigate and locate things than Gigabyte or Asus or ASRock. So my advice would be follow the exact board you've got and follow the video, and it should walk you right through it. It's super easy, barely an inconvenience. And thank you for the question. Let me jump back over to our chat. Still waiting on install of updates and see what other questions you've got that I might have missed. Barry Klein said, I would have used a crowbar to remove the screw. I've got a court injunction against me brought by the SPCT. That's the Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Tools. Yeah, I cringe anytime I see somebody use a hammer on the end of a screwdriver. It's not a chisel. There's our friend Mitch Morrison joining us. He says he's back from skiing at Vail, Colorado. No broken bones and good times. Right on, Mitch. Well, thanks for hanging out. Mitch should join us on Friday. He bought a case, power supply, and NVMe storage, and we've got some pre-prepped boards over here, and he wants to build himself a birthday build. So this is computer number 5 for Mitch. I have no idea why one person needs 5 computers, but I'm not going to tell him no. So he'll join us on Friday, and with the prepped motherboard, we'll put his NVMe drive in there. We'll put the board into the case he purchased with the power supply he purchased. And we should be able to get it done in one show since the motherboard's already prepped. famous last words. And Mitch can have a 5th computer to maintain. I'm okay with it. I'm just scratching my head. Like, we could have upgraded one you already had, but he just calls me one day. He goes, "Hey, I bought a new case." "I did not know you were in the market for a case. You know, I've got a few laying around here." "Yeah, it came with a power supply." "Okay, and why did you buy that?" "I'm gonna do birthday build." "You mean you're gonna upgrade what you've already got?" "No, I'm gonna have another one." "Come on over." So then I started feeling sick, and I thought, you know what, I don't want to get Mitch sick, so we're going to do this last week. But and then Mitch went skiing for his birthday, just came back, and we were talking the other night, and I'm feeling a lot better today. Yesterday, I was having little bits of coughing fits. I feel fine, but I'm still a little congested. There's no fever. I'm sure I'm not contagious, but my throat was getting dry, and it just started to cough. And once I start, it's hard to stop. Then I'm sniffling. So I still have a little bit of sniffles. My voice feels a lot better. And hopefully I'm at 100% tomorrow, let alone Friday. But yeah, I hope you'll join us on Friday at 1 o'clock as Mitch joins us back here at Studio C. And we do his 5th build. It's not that he's done 5. It's that he has 5. I mean, I have like 30, but I'm sick and need help. That's a different situation. Mitch says 1 in every room. The bathroom? I don't think he's got 5 rooms. What do I know? Scotty says, "Thanks, Carey. I built..." He's talking about the H370. He built it from watching one of my videos. That was one of my 8-year builds. I sold a lot of those to clients, and many of them are, I'd say 90% of them are still being used today. The 10% that aren't were since upgraded. I don't remember why, but there's nothing wrong with them. The client, for one reason or another, decided it was a good idea to go to a newer generation of chip. I can't remember the reason. And I ended up reselling those boards to a PC flipper. So that made the cost to my customer much more appealing to do the upgrade. And we continued to use the same case, same power supply. We replaced the RAM, the storage, and the NVMe drive. And everything else moved over. So then when you include selling the old board with CPU and RAM and the old SATA SSD, that took a significant portion off the customer's cost. Steve Dodd says hello. Welcome in, Steve. Felipe wants to know what browser I recommend. I think you should use whatever browser you like. It's like asking me what chocolate bar. Do I prefer a Twix over a Kit Kat? It doesn't matter what I prefer. Those are my personal tastes. I don't expect you and I to have the same personal taste. And I would not, even for a minute, think that you're going to like what I like for the reasons I like it. So if you like Chrome, if you like Edge, if you like Opera, if you like Brave, if you like Firefox, use whatever you like. That's all that matters. You know, do you like Ford or Chevy, BMW or Mercedes? Buy what you like. When we get to questions involving preference, these are human emotional decisions that I don't know any of these. Most people in our chat room, I've never met them face to face. So it's hard to know what somebody's preferences are. For me to tell you what you like, I mean, how many people do you know in your world that could do that? I'd have to know you pretty well. I'm not aware of any browsers to tell you to avoid. I use Google Chrome if you want to know what I use, because I'm a YouTube content creator. And YouTube is owned by Google, and Chrome is owned by Google. And if I want to broadcast as smoothly as possible, with as few problems as possible, I'm going to stay within the Google family. Not like I have a choice. And once I get used to that, then I don't want to switch to a different browser on another computer and then lose all of my mojo, if you will, and familiarity because things are moved around or look different from one browser to another. So whatever the browser is I'm using, for whatever reason I'm using it, I will generally use universally in order to keep my life less complicated, but not because of any loyalty or passion for a manufacturer. Manufacturers are cold and soulless corporations that don't care if you live or die. They really don't care. So for me to have any loyalty towards them would make me personally feel like a complete idiot. It'd be like caring for a rock. Oh, this rock is very special, and these are the only rocks that I collect, just these. That rock doesn't care. And when you're gone and that rock is still around, it's never going to think about you. So my brain just doesn't work like that. All the browsers are fine. You just use whatever one you like. For whatever reason you like it. Andy wants to know if I advise updating chipset drivers before updating the BIOS. Usually, when you go to update a BIOS, if a chipset driver is needed, it'll be needed after the BIOS is updated, not before it. And usually, in such a scenario, that stipulation is noted. When you go to download the BIOS, the manufacturer will say, you need an updated driver, and usually have a link to get that driver. So no, I personally would not update the chipset driver. In some cases, it won't be possible. In some cases, you'll try to update the driver, and it'll say you don't have a compatible chip for this driver. So then you update the BIOS, and now you've got an error in your device manager because the other driver doesn't work anymore. And you're trying to figure out, why do I have this error in my device manager? And you look back at the BIOS download, it said you need to update it with this driver. This happened to me recently on an AMD BIOS update. And I downloaded the latest Adrenaline software. Still had the error in the device manager. So I went back to the motherboard manufacturer's website where I got the BIOS, and it says you need to put in this beta driver, this latest version, which AMD had not released from AMD, but the manufacturer released it, and it was version 4, I think, versus the Adrenaline chipset drivers were like 3.7 or something. So I downloaded this version 4 directly from the motherboard manufacturer with the link that was right there by the BIOS. Then I installed the driver. It says, yep, we have everything you need for this driver, passes the check, installs the driver, and device manager is good to go. Eventually, AMD will have that version 4 released, and maybe they already do, I don't know, but that's the only time I've encountered that. And that's the issue you run into if you try and put the cart before the horse. Some cases it won't matter one way or the other. But if the driver doesn't install, that's a possibility if the latest BIOS that driver needs isn't there. But it's never the other way around. In other words, if you always do the BIOS first, you may or may not need the driver. You won't know until after you reboot. And then, if it does require a new driver, you'll be very aware of that by just looking in the device manager. And if you just want to be sure, even if the device manager is happy, you double check after you've updated the BIOS and put the chipset drivers back in and see if they update. And, you know, whether it's AMD or Intel, they'll install a second time, and you may not even know if it updated or not. Sort of, it's hard to fix a problem if you're not having any symptoms. So when we're trying to avoid problems, it's an amazing amount of effort and overthinking that goes into avoiding a problem you likely would never have to begin with, but that you're prepared to deal with in such a rare circumstance that that unlikely event would occur, and you want to prevent that from happening even though it never would have happened to begin with. And now, because you've circumvented it, you don't really know if you avoided the problem or if you would have had the problem because you prevented the problem, but you never would have had the problem to begin with. So I would suggest to remove all this anxiety and what if hypothetical nonsense, which to me is nonsense, and when you have an actual issue, something has a symptom that you are describing to us, we can help you address that. But if what you're trying to do is to go through life without hitting any obstacles or dealing with problem solving, that's not living. That to me is not life. That would be the most boring, unsatisfactory life you could ever lead if you were able to live your life by seeing the future and preventing all the bad things from happening. You would be the most depressed, bored person. This is what makes life interesting, and this is what the lessons are that stay with us, is when there's a little sting to them, right? Something memorable about it. But if we're avoiding problems that we never maybe would have had to begin with, quite often there's no lesson in that for anybody. So that's just my particular perspective on that. But absolutely, if there is an issue, if there is a symptom, and you want to solve that, by all means, please come in here and ask. And we can almost 100% of the time solve whatever that problem is. But if the problem is your imagination, that's an endless downward abyss that leads into nothingness. So it doesn't exercise any point or lesson for anybody to encourage that type of belief or behavior system. And it's certainly not the way my business runs. I don't work on computers based on how people feel. I, generally speaking, work on a symptom. So if somebody says the computer isn't working right, what part of it isn't working right? So in a sense, when I say feel, they could say, well, it feels slow. Well, let's verify that. Let me see it. Show me what is sluggish. And I'll determine, yeah, it does seem sluggish. Or it may be that they're doing searches every day, and their searches are taking longer and longer to complete because every day other employees at the company are adding more and more data. Every day, more data than the day before. Every day, more data than the day before. Every week, every month, every year, there's more data than there was the day and the week and the month. So when you search, you're searching through more. Every day, what you're searching through is a bigger pile. It's naturally going to take longer. The question is it taking longer? Is it taking too long for the amount of data it's searching based on how long it took a couple weeks ago? Or is it falling in line with the amount the data's grown since then? And how much money do you want to spend to fix this? Because we can fix all those problems. It might take us 5 hours to fix a problem that's a 2-second delay, but maybe that 2-second delay adds up and makes up for the 2 hours and the $4,000 to fix it. So in that sense, we deal with symptoms, so we have something to compare it to, right? This is the way I'm expecting it to run, and this is what it's doing. Smith Thomas says, first time viewer for the live stream. Hey, welcome in, Smith Thomas. We have a very friendly group here, and we encourage all friendly individuals to come join us in our live chats, interact with each other and myself. Thanks for saying hello. We hope you'll be a regular part of our live chat. We have a live video scheduled for tomorrow, and we have a live video, as I previously mentioned, scheduled every Friday at 1 o'clock. We'll start again at 1 o'clock Phoenix time. That's 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern, now that the time change has taken effect. Phoenix, it's always 1 o'clock. Phoenix does never moves our clocks. We don't honor daylight saving time here. Phil Stott has a clever response to the browser question. Let me scroll around here. So Andy Kane says, I'll double check for that link. Yeah, so you'd have to be more specific with us, Andy, with regards to what BIOS have you downloaded for what motherboard and what error are you trying to correct, and we can provide the link for you if such a thing exists. I'm a little confused because I don't understand the details of your question. Your question's a bit vague, given there's over 100 different motherboards you could be using. And within those boards, there could be 10 or 15 different BIOSes for each board. That's over 15,000 different options and variables. And then you can cut that in half, one side for AMD, one side for Intel, depending on which chipset driver you need. The number of variables here that we're discussing based on the level of information you're providing us is limiting how precise our answer can be. But if you choose and you want to tell us the make and model of the board and the BIOS you're installing and what error are you trying to resolve, we can absolutely give you a very specific link to solve that problem for you with the specific BIOS and hardware you have. Chef H said he's hanging out from Hawaii on vacation. Hey, nice. Enjoy that. Nick Poverman said, I had an electrician once come to my house and change a light fixture without turning the electricity off. I was shocked. Pun intended. He was able to do that. No pun intended. Oh, he says no pun intended. Light switches are easy. Turn the power switch off at the wall. You should be able to do that yourself. When you're changing an electrical outlet, that's live power. And as long as you're only handling one wire at a time, and you make sure you don't touch anything. Remember the game Operation where you had to take the little plastic bones out of the patient without hitting the edges? That's a short circuit. That's teaching people how to be electricians. If you want to play it safe, you turn the circuit breaker off for that circuit. If you want to play it extra safe, shut the entire power off to the house. Now, if you're working at night, I hope you have a flashlight. So this is work best done in daylight. But when it comes to changing any light fixtures, you should be able to hit the switch at the wall that turns the light fixture on and off. And so long as the switch is off, the circuit is broken, and you should be able to handle that easily. It's still a good practice to always use insulated tools. So they make insulated screwdrivers for electricians. Klein and Knappix, two big manufacturers of specialty tools for electricians that are well respected. And always handle one wire at a time and never let a wire touch another wire or the metal frame of the outlet or of the device itself. Bend that wire away. You can use your tools. You take the screwdriver and you unscrew the wire from an outlet, and that outlet is hot. Take the screwdriver, unscrew one wire, take your pliers, grab the wire by the insulation, untwist it from the screw, pull it away and bend it back so it's not touching anything. Then you can work your way to the next wire. Don't let the wires touch, and don't you lean on anything metal while you're doing it. Keep yourself isolated one wire at a time. You don't need to turn the power off. And if you get a shock, it's 120 volts. It's unpleasant, but it's not as bad as a taser or anything. It's just doesn't feel good, but it's not going to, it's possible to get electrocuted, but likely you're going to get that little zap and you're going to, yikes. It's not a good feeling, but it's also, at least on 120 volts here in the US, it's really not that big of a deal. But again, follow safe practices. You just turn the breaker off. But I have switched out, like for example, I had to replace a couple of switches. And when we're doing a switch that controls a light, it's usually just one wire. So essentially, the one wire runs directly to the outlet, to the light fixture, and the other wire runs into the switch, and then it runs out of the switch to be the other wire in the light fixture. So to replace the switch, again, make sure the switch is powered off. There's only going to be two wires, and that's the same wire. It's just the switch breaks it and reconnects it mechanically inside the switch to complete the circuit or separate the circuit. It's not like a positive and a negative. It's just one wire. I don't remember if it's the neutral wire or the hot wire. But either way, it's probably the neutral. But either way, unscrew one, pull the wire off, unscrew the other, pull the wire off, throw the switch out, grab your new switch, put the new wire on. Make sure the switch is off. If the switch is on and you go to attach the second wire, you'll get sparks. That might freak you out, but it's not going to hurt anything. Assuming you're holding the insulation and not the bare wire. And if you do touch the wires together, you're not short-circuiting, you're completing the circuit, so the light will turn on and off. That's easy stuff. Bill Stodd said the 120 volts is not anything to be careless about. It's not the volts that'll kill you, it's the amps. This is true. But I'm just telling you from personal experience, when I've changed out outlets and I've gotten a little zap, it's no big deal. And I've seen my electrician working with the power on, and he gets shocked regularly. Like he doesn't even react to it anymore. He's gotten so numb to it. It's like watching a chef cook. Chefs will often get burns up and down their arms, in their hands. From, you're cooking all day, you're inevitably going to burn yourself. And after a while, you just get calloused up or something, or your pain threshold goes up. And, for me, I'd be done for the day. For them, they just keep going. Okay, so Andy Kane says BIOS version F33A. And did he tell us the make and model of the motherboard? Peter VZ with a €1 super chat, joining us from the Netherlands. Thank you, Peter. Ian Gooch joins us from London. He says it's 4 degrees Celsius. And hello to everybody in the chat. Cheers, Ian. Thanks for hanging out with us today. Still a little bit sniffly, but much better than I was yesterday. Barry Klein said, I knew an electrician check for a circuit being live by touching it to feel for the shock. That's not a professional electrician. Here's the deal. When you're working in industrial buildings, you can't do that. There's a whole nother level of power there that's very, very dangerous. Big apartment complexes and corporate offices and things. But for homes, especially here in the USA, it's not that big of a deal. If it's a 220 volt, that's a different scenario, like for a dryer outlet or a car charger. However, should always be safety first, regardless of what you've seen other people do. And there's plenty of great channels here on YouTube from professional electricians that will advise you the right way and demonstrate why. And they know how to demonstrate safely the wrong way so that it's not burning the house down or something. And if you're interested in learning more about it, you don't take that advice from me. Take that advice from a professional in that field. Well, I know about electronics because it goes hand in hand with computer work. This is 5 volts and 12 volts, or maybe 19 volts, depending on the machine. We don't usually go over that. So even if I put my hands on it and such, I likely can't feel anything. You shouldn't do that because of electrostatic discharge, but you'll see I often, if I'm doing my job properly, disconnecting power before I do any work inside of these things. Oh, speaking of which, I never did open this up. I'm just realizing our updates long ago finished. Let me shut this down. And let's just open it real quick before we wrap up today's video. And also buy you guys some more time if you have any questions for me. So we'll shut this down and we'll go full screen on camera 1. We'll see that power light go out. Yep, it's off. Get everything unplugged, especially power. And on the bottom, there's 4 holes, which I'm assuming that's where the screws are. It's my first experience with this unit, so I'm making assumptions based on other mini PCs, and most of them follow the same processes for assembly and disassembly. I think these are all my Torx bits. I don't want that. I'm probably needing a very small jeweler's screwdriver to get through these narrow holes and holes. And I'm not sure where the screw is, but it's likely going to have some depth to it. So if you're average consumer, probably don't have these kind of tools laying around, but they're not expensive to buy a small kit. Like here's an iFixit Marlin kit that contains a bunch of these commonly used, very small precision drivers used in laptops and mini PCs. So that seems like an ideal choice. Again, iFixit doesn't even know I exist. I bought these tools because I think iFixit makes good tools, and I don't want to work any harder than I have to. And it just so happens I have other precision driver kits around here. This is the first one I saw. We're live and unscripted, so that's the one we're using. I will absolutely need my glasses for this, but this should just take minutes to demonstrate. It should be that easy. And again, this isn't really designed to be upgradable. At the end of the day, you're never going to change this processor. It's soldered to the motherboard, as all portable chips are. You cannot change that chip. And the chip is always going to be your bottleneck on a system like this. You can throw all the RAM and storage you want in it. It's not really going to go much faster. Maybe you'll see a difference with the RAM, but if you really need that much power, you probably shouldn't be buying this level of computer. The idea that you're going to save money, it's the opposite. You're going to spend more. I promise you. It'll cost you more to upgrade this than if you just bought it with what you wanted out of the gate and spent a little bit more for the larger storage or more RAM. They do sell other versions, or there are competitors that sell other versions that are better equipped. Don't buy something under your need and then turn around and think, well, the first thing I'm going to do when it arrives is I'm going to open it up and upgrade it. You don't even know if the computer you got works. So now you've upgraded it and it doesn't work. Is that because your upgrade is causing it to fail, or it just arrived broken? You don't know. So you absolutely want to leave this sealed and use it to make sure that you're confident everything works good. So then you upgrade it, and if anything changes, you know you're the one who caused it. So if you just bought it the way you wanted it right out of the gate, not only would it save you money, in most cases it's going to cost you less to buy it already equipped, but it will also all be under warranty and be less likely to have any negative consequences due to compatibility or whoopsies. You know, sometimes you take the backs off of these mini PCs and find out there's these really delicate antennas for the Wi-Fi, and you rip them right off. All because you wanted to do something simple. And now, hopefully you're good at soldering and repairing wires that you physically broke off. So one of the reasons I do these disassemblies live on camera is if you have a similar machine that has wires attached to, don't yank that off real quick. I've done that live on camera where something's still holding us in here, and it feels like there's a hidden screw or something, but I'm going to guess there's clips. I never understand why manufacturers use a combination of screws and clips. Use one or the other. I understand on a laptop you could get the seam not being level if you don't clip it down, and the alternative would be to put a screw every 1 inch. Still, I'd prefer one or the other versus the combination. So I'm guessing we've got some clips holding this closed. It feels awfully tight. And I can't imagine there'd be a 5th screw, but I've never opened one before. I don't believe there's any screws underneath the feet. It wouldn't make any sense for them to be that close together. So I'm guessing it's clips. Boy, that does not want to come out. And then that's the little micro SD card reader that I failed to point out initially. And then this right here is a recessed CMOS or BIOS reset switch that you would use like a SIM removal tool or a unfolded paper clip to put in there. Again, I don't know why you'd be doing that, but it's there. Let me do a quick search just to see if anybody has disassembled one of these, because I don't want to try and rip that apart if there's another screw I'm missing. So I'm going to just go to YouTube and I'm going to type in Wowie, and this is a, what did they call this model? P5 teardown. Let's see if there's any videos. There's PlayStation 5 teardown. That is not useful. How about just Wowie P5? Has anybody reviewed this unit? It's been around a while. So far, my search is nothing. So let me put a space between Woe and We. See if that shows anything. I'm getting Japanese animation and scantily clad animated figures. Mini PC. Nope. These are some mini PCs with similar chips, but a different manufacturer. This person shows how to install Linux on one of these. Oh, this looks like it. Take it apart. Playing some games on it. The video I'm looking at is by a creator called TG Geek. And the title of the video is "This Ryzen Mini PC is a Tiny Powerhouse." And this video is from a year ago, over a year ago. And he does not open it up. I guess we're on our own. Story of my life. All right, it's fine. That's fine. Back to my chat room. Let's see. So with the pull tab, you know, that's supposed to make the removal of this super easy. And something is still holding us in there. So I'm going to try a spudging tool, which I have. In fact, I should have it down here. Probably get my metal iFixit spudging tool. This is my favorite one to use because it doesn't gouge up like the plastic ones. But at the same time, it could gouge up the device. But its strength and thickness is just much better than the plastic ones, or at least my touch, if you will. It gives me the kind of feedback I prefer. Something has locked us in right there. And it's so strong. If that's a clip, it's a very well-made clip. Because, I mean, this thing is not budging. It feels more like it's secured with a screw. But I don't know where that screw would be. Come along this side of it. So one way you can work around some of these clips is you try and bend. So let's say there's a clip holding this in, and that clip is right here. What you need to do is get your spudging tool in the seam and pull this big piece, pull it away. I don't know how well I can demonstrate this, but let's go somewhere where we're locked in, like right here. And instead of twisting this, because that's a great way to break the plastic clip, we know that there's going to be a clip on this cover and somewhere on the walls of the unit that's holding it in place. So we want to separate the wall by pulling it away. Instead of twisting it, pull it away, and you'll see with a little bit of pressure, not too much pressure, because we don't want this to pull off suddenly and rip any Wi-Fi antennas that may be attached to the bottom. So you see here, it doesn't want to come off. So there's a clip, and it's somewhere in the middle here. And if I can find an open edge and just bend the screwdriver or bend the spudging tool, bending this plastic away, that freed us up from those clips. What's interesting is there are 4 screws in here and a 2.5-inch SATA drive mount right there. So those small screws that I demonstrated with the screw extraction pliers, they're for a mechanical or SSD SATA drive. And inside, This is actually very well equipped. Let me bring it up to the camera and show you close up. Everything looks like it's user serviceable. This is the SATA data and power cable that you would be attaching if you wanted to put a mechanical or solid state 2.5-inch drive in the lid. Well, you'd be trapping more heat in here, and I think you'd be foolish to do it. You can do it. They do give you the cable. That's what that's for. And I cannot strongly emphasize and recommend enough, you do not do this because you're going to trap more heat. There's no fan in here. That's going to make your RAM run hotter and your storage run hotter. This is your NVMe drive, and your RAM does have a second channel, so upgrading the RAM is super easy. Some of the lower end Intel, like the N series, you're only going to have single channel support. On the AMDs, though, you see we've got dual channel support there, so that's nice to see. But you're still going to be limited to about 32 gigs on the lower end chips. Again, you can replace this, but there's no heatsink on it, so if you try and replace it with something too fast, you'll just quickly overheat is what you'll do. So if you're going to stay with a larger capacity drive, I would advise you to go middling on the performance side of things because there's no heatsink and there's no fan in here. Now underneath that is our Wi-Fi card right under there. This is our BIOS battery that plugs into the board here. And that's all she wrote. Like, you couldn't ask for it to be more serviceable. Very easy to access. The hard part are these are the clips I was fighting with. Right down here, there's one right there. Looks like another one right there. And they're on all four sides. So again, what I was doing was bending this away, separating those clips from the lid. I can't emphasize that enough because instinctively I want to twist the screwdriver to separate, and that'll just break these clips. Okay, and with that, I think we're about done for today. Let me go back to the chat one more time, and let's cover any super chats we might have missed. And again, if there's any questions that you have that I missed, this is your last opportunity for interacting with me live. Shout out to thank you to Peter VZ for that €1 super chat. David Graham with a $2 super chat said, "Is that why business meeting done in bars?" I'm not sure what that's a reference to. Thank you, David. David also with a $5 super chat before that. And Mark Gaines, thank you for your super chat and your Amazon gift card. Bradley Morris, thank you for renewing your membership. Same with Barry Klein. Both are members now 34 months. Colin Hunt, thank you again for your super chat contribution. And another from David Graham and our friend Planet Cryos. Patrick Manny also renewed his membership today, also a member for 34 months. Planet Cryos contributed and also renewed his membership for the 34th month. Davis Parson contributed in Super Chat, as well as our good friend Buster, Peter Laycock. And a new member, Rat King, joined us here as a new supporter. Sorry, I just saw that, but thank you for hanging out with us, Rat King, and becoming a supporter. And we hope we'll see you regularly here in our chat. And David Graham said his comment was funny at the time. Yeah, and do keep in mind that when I am live, there is a delay between when I talk and when you hear me. So timing can be very difficult. With that, also with how infrequently I split my time between reading the chat and then focusing on the work. There's a big gap. I could already be halfway into this before you're even hearing me say I'm opening it up. So just keep that in mind in future broadcasts, that figure in a delay of a couple of minutes of what you're hearing. I said probably no sooner than a minute ago. Because we're broadcasting with closed captioning enabled in 4K, the delay has been lengthened about triple than what it used to be when we were in the low lag mode. But with the ultra low latency mode, I call it lag, we couldn't broadcast at 4K. We can't have closed captions. And that added delay means even at its soonest, you're about a minute delay from when I talk to when you hear me, which is still pretty incredible. But thank you so much for your support and your participation and your generosity. Essential Working Too Hard is now a member for 18 months. He says, what, there's no part 2? You know, I think on this one, I think we did a pretty thorough job. I'm very disappointed personally with the last 2 reviews I've done on the 10 gig network card and on the AI X1 from Minisforum. So I'm going to have to redo those reviews because they're not up to my standard. But in all fairness, I had construction going on, I was feeling sick, and definitely wasn't at my best. But it just goes to show, you know, if it's been a few days and I'm not feeling well, it's a very easy thing for me to get out of my groove. And it takes me a minute to find the groove again. And it also helps if I'm feeling better. So by forcing myself to do those shows, I ended up with shows that I don't like them. I don't like how they came out. So we're going to redo those. And I think on Friday when Mitch joins us, I think we should be able to do that all in one part too. One part as well. Let's see. Andy Kane says he sees there's a BIOS F33B. Did he ever tell us what the motherboard was? I missed it. Just looking at the past chats, I've missed a lot of them. Just regular chats. And these public videos, you know, they get, and specifically for David Graham, when you're on a public video and there's so many people all chatting at the same time, don't take it personally if I miss your chat. I can only see a piece of the chat at a time. I cannot see the whole thing. So it's very easy for me to see a chat that comes before yours or after yours. And in between, I've looked away and you've scrolled off the screen. It's not a dig against you personally. It's just really bad timing between us. That being said, if you want that kind of attention, make sure and hang out with us in the members only videos where it's not so busy and chaotic. And the chances of that happening are much more reduced when there's only 40 people in the chat room versus 80 or 100 or 200. And I appreciate your understanding in that it's just the way the cookie crumbles, if you will. But it's not personal. I'm just not aware of it until I'm aware of it. But in the meantime, adjust your expectations accordingly and understand this. On this side of the camera, things look a little different. But I do intend to cover everybody, and I always go back and read through the super chats, and you'll see I frequently miss them from others. I don't do that on purpose, but that's why I have to make a moment to go back and look again, because I feel terrible once I'm made aware that that happened. Frank Jimmy says, "Wowee, this was such a great live stream and product review. Thanks, Carey, for all you do for the community." Yeah, and I wouldn't even so much call this a review as I would a product introduction, right? The measure of how does this perform is going to be exactly the same as any similarly equipped computer. Doesn't matter if it's a mini PC or a desktop. If it's similarly equipped, it's going to perform exactly the same way. So we're not looking at performance as a focus. We're looking at price and capability. And I would have proper expectations if I'm buying a budget machine. And I have to say, as upgradable as this is, I wasn't expecting it to be that upgradable. As easy as it was to open, we didn't have to remove any rubber feet. I wasn't expecting that. I'm happy to see that. With regard to Windows 10 being installed, I would normally give a company a ding for that. But this is an exception because I think that's why it's priced so low. So if you're somebody looking for a great value, looking for a bargain, and you're not afraid of doing the Windows upgrade yourself, it's free. This is a bargain to be had. In that, you know, perspective. If on the other hand, you're just looking for something, out of the box, plug it in and start using it, you probably need to adjust your budget accordingly to get that level of service. I mean, I would like to have somebody drive me around town and to use their car, but I'm probably going to have to pay for that. I can expect it all day for free, and maybe somebody will be kind enough to drive up and chauffeur me with their car and their time and their gas, but I doubt it unless I'm willing to pay for it. In much the same way, you can be as demanding as you want to be if you've got the budget to accommodate that. And if what you're looking for is a really good value, which really doesn't have a compare. Like, I am not aware of any other PC equipped similarly that runs significantly less. As I mentioned, the N150, when you see those go on sale, it might be $20 cheaper, but still 8 gig of RAM, still 256 gig storage, but then you're also not getting the hyper-threading. So you're paying in a different way. So on the market now in March of 2025, and I'm guessing until inventory runs out, if you're looking for a fun little box, you don't want to put a lot of money into it, this is the one to buy as far as I'm concerned. And most offices that I handle as clients, they would be using this as office computers and they wouldn't know the difference, honestly. And like I said, you want a DVD drive, just get yourself an external USB, DVD, CD, reader, writer, plug it in, you're good to go. No limitations there either. So overall, I'm impressed. I think for the price, can't be beat. For performance, you can always beat that with money. So just bear that in mind. As for the brand, they're a lesser known brand. I don't have a lot of data over the course of any period of time other than we have evaluated at least one other Huawei computer and we liked it. And I think it's still here. I just don't use it. And I don't have any problems or complaints with it. So we're off to a good start. At the end of the day, it's really your experience that matters. So if you end up buying one of these or you've got something else made by Huawei and you want to share your thoughts on that, we'd love to hear from actual owners with real experience, not from what you read on the internet, because that's just a bunch of hogwash, but what you personally actually experienced, for better or for worse, or maybe somewhere in between. We'd love to hear your story. And that's going to wrap it up for me for today. I thank you again to Mara for all the work she does in the background, doing all of the administrative tasks. That's a full-time job here, running the background, which is thumbnail creation and video descriptions, talking with potential partners, such as setting up this review from Huawei. She did all that. And thank you to Huawei for sending us the unit so we can review it and evaluate it. And thank you to all of the members and for all of the viewers for hanging out with me today. Thank you as well for our friends over at VIP CDK Deals. The product keys that they sell are 100% legitimate. And we've had to change the website due to some PayPal payment issues. So using is it VIP SCD keys? It's the same parent company, and we have links in the video notes below. I see I'm out of practice, with a 30% off coupon. So you're already going to pay less without the coupon, but you're going to save even more with a 30% off. We don't make a commission off of that. We're looking for you to save some money. You can get Windows 10, Windows 11, Microsoft Office. The product, the coupon code, the Carey 30, saves you 30% off across the board. So we hope you take advantage of it, and the product has full support for 6 months. You reach out to them if you have any problems. I guarantee they'll take care of you. If you don't get taken care of, you let me know. All right? They have a very solid reputation. Everything is legit. You're welcome to investigate it. However deeply skeptical you might be, I encourage you to look on your own and do your research, and you'll find what I'm telling you is true. And if you find out anything otherwise, you let me know. In the meantime, that'll wrap it up for us for today. Thank you for hanging out with us. I hope you enjoy the rest of your Wednesday, and I hope you'll be back tomorrow at 1 o'clock as we have another live video with interactive chat, 1 p.m. tomorrow. That'll wrap it up for me for today. Thank you so much. I'll see you again very, very soon. Until next time, bye for now.